Hello and welcome to episode 186 of the Arena Regulars podcast. I'm Zach,
And I'm Jeff.
and we're your source for drunken Magic the Gathering arena content.
That's right. Just a couple of regular guys drinking some irregular beer and talking about Magic the Gathering, in particular, the online client MTG Arena.
That's right, and this week we are pre-gaming the new set that's coming out, Tarkir Dragonstorm. I feel like you have to say it like that, otherwise it
Yeah,
doesn't really count.
yeah.
Uh,
Tarkir Dragonstorm.
Dragonstorm. It's just a little Dragonstorm.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're going to get into that very soon. But first, each week we bring a beer, we drink it, we rate it on a scale from bronze to mythic, just like the tiers in Arena. So, with that, Jeff, what's on tap?
All right. It's a pre-game, so I figured we better do it right. I brought for another Clifford Brewing. I think this is the last one that I picked up on my Clifford extravaganza my shopping spree that I went on at Clifford a little while ago. So sad face, it's the last one in my fridge, but happy face means I get to buy more. And we're ending with the Imperial Porter. This is a 9% extra strong beer, as it says on the
Yes.
can. It's a porter. It's been the flagship of Clifford Brewing since the beginning. I liked that.
All right.
That. And this is an award-winning recipe, has amplified everything about that porter that made them famous. And that's actually true. Clifford Porter is like one of the few beers you can get sort of everywhere.
Oh, okay.
It is their flagship.
That's their flagship. I mean, I could totally see this being the type of recipe where you start home brewing and then you're like, all right, let's make a porter. And then you're like, oh, sick. Okay. Actually, let's do this. And then you just like blow up. So
Yeah.
awesome. I'm
So
excited.
I'm excited for the big version.
Yes, we used to do a lot more heavy beers like this, these nine
Yeah.
percenters. It used to be like a very commonplace thing, but we've pushed back a little bit in recent years. But happy to be back in it, just at least for this episode.
It's nice once in a while. I still do love these beers. It's just,
Mhm.
they put you on your ass.
Yeah, yeah. And when we first did the podcast, we would drink like three of them, or four.
Yeah.
We do drink a lot.
Youth.
Oh, youth. Anyway, Jeff, let's crack this open and let's get it going. All right. With that, we have some magic news. Today's April Fool's Day. Yay, as we're recording this. It's April 1st, but Arena always has some fun little holiday jokes to bring us in the client. And this year was probably the best we've seen, honestly. So, uh, in in past years, they've done different types of things. You can usually buy things in the store. This year was no different. We did have something in the store. It was, I think last year we had the pet rock you could get. His name was Dwayne, and he's just like a rock with like googly eyes glued onto him. And this year they made another version of Dwayne called Dastardly Dwayne, which is the same rock, but they like just drew on like angry eyebrows and like a mustache on him. So he looks like kind of like an old timey, like, I don't know, yeah, bank robber. Yeah. Like
Yeah, yeah.
he's like brothers with like Waluigi and Wario, basically.
Perfect.
Yeah. So I definitely bought that immediately because I thought it was funny. But they did change every single card in the client to be heavily played. So as you're playing through whatever, if you're playing cube or draft or like your standard decks or whatever, every card that you have that's like regular art has like all the edges are fucked up and like bent and stuff, or like scuffed to shit. And it's awesome. It was just really, it was fun. I don't
Just a
think I could do
feature
it
we
all
could
the
just
time.
like leave on. Yeah.
I wonder if they would be able to let you just do that. It would be kind of funny. It does seem like a lot to like. After a while, it does get tiresome, but it was really funny. It would be kind of nice if, like, imagine, like, what would happen if your cards slowly got played the more you played them?
I would love that.
Or, like, what if there was a thing you could turn on and it would show you, like, your card's conditions depending on which ones you've used the most?
Yeah,
Um,
like you should be able to turn it off. I get that for
yeah,
sure.
yeah.
But this feature would be awesome because it's like a badge of honor, you know? Like my
Yeah.
Fable of the Mirror Breaker is barely hanging by a thread. You
hmm
know?
But, like, my other cards are, like, brand spanking new,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, pristine.
That would be pretty
My
cool. I
old
like that
art
idea.
mountains and swamps
Just
just thrashed.
wrecked. Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun to me. I like that idea a lot. We should tell Wizards. Hey,
Yeah,
Wizards. This is people will probably not spend money on this, so you probably won't want to do it. But
yeah.
uh,
But I will.
I
So
I will pay like 500 gold.
yeah, I was thinking a
Yeah.
thousand tops, but yeah, 500 sounds right.
Perfect. Of course, Tarkir Dragonstorm is coming out next week. So pre-releases for that are this weekend. Looking forward to my local pre-release at my LGS. It's really one of the only times I'm playing or buying paper magics. So that's really nice. I want to always make sure that I'm doing that. So support your local stores. Yay.
Yeah, I definitely try to when I can, and it's always
Hmm.
so much fun.
It's so much fun. Uh, but yeah, so Jeff, for our pregame episodes, we have two things we always like to do. The first is talk about our no pass list, and then the second is our favorite game, Pack Zero, Pick One, where we
Yeah.
talk about the commons we think are going to be the best in the draft format. But Jeff, let's start talking about our no pass list as we come into the new set and the new acquisition period. So, just for a refresher, what's our no pass list?
Yeah, so a no pass list is basically a set of cards that we map out ahead of a draft format, and these cards are ones that we will take if we see them in a draft pack, no matter what. I mean,
Hmm.
assuming we haven't hit the quota on them that we set for ourselves already. But if we don't already have, a play set of the card that we want, then we take this one. So that means they tend to be rares and mythic rares. I mean, it doesn't make a ton of sense to put uncommons on here because the point
Hmm.
is to conserve wild cards. But basically, it's our way of saying we're very pro rare drafting if you're smart about it ahead of time. Don't just take
Hmm.
any rare that you see because, you're unlikely to play a lot of the rares that you see. But if
Hmm.
you go through and pick out the ones that you know that you want to play, even if it's just to try it out in like standard or explorer, or you know it's in a tier, going to go into a tier deck that you want to build, then it's more valuable to get essentially the free wild card by taking that card than a slight upgrade on your worst card in your draft deck. And so, you'll see a lot of hate online about rare drafting, and I think it comes from different time and a different sort of certainly like, there were a lot less playables back in the day, and so fighting for
Hmm.
playables was more of a thing.
Was a
Um, but it
real
also
thing, yeah.
but it's also just like it wasn't Arena is a completely new thing. Like rare drafting has been hated long before Arena even existed, and Arena is a
Hmm.
totally new economy. So you can't
Yes,
just take what applies to like paper economy and assume it applies to Arena economy.
it's
And I
true.
also kind of like rare drafting in paper too. If it's a card you want, just take it. So
Yeah,
um yeah, don't listen to those people. Listen to us and
exactly.
map out what cards you want to take ahead of time.
It's true. And the one thing that you don't have to worry about in Arena is that like you actually only have to take cards that you either want to play in your deck or in real life. The third thing that happened, or real life, sorry, in constructed. The third thing that happens in paper is that there's an expensive card that you don't want to play in your deck or you don't want to play in your
Yeah,
like commander deck, let's say, but it's $20. And so you're like, well, I feel like I have to take this just to sell it. And that
right.
is something we don't have to deal with. So
Like pay for the
uh,
draft kind of thing.
yeah, that kind of vibe is like, well, I paid for my draft, even though my draft sucked. I get to pay for it, which is somehow not that like it's totally fine if you find enjoyment by doing that, but drafting is also just fun to do. So going into the draft, knowing which cards you want to take if you see them is smart, and we want to be smart. So, Jeff, the first thing, as always, that we always look at in every single set, because the most important cards, the ones you play most often, are going to be the lands.
Yes.
So, we are always really excited to see if they're going to be rare dual lands in draft sets. And Tarkir originally had fetch lands. Now, we do not have fetch lands in this set. Well, sorry, we don't have fetch lands at rare. They are the special guests, so
Yeah.
that those will pop up every once in a while. So if you want to play timeless, you can take those for sure. But we do have a different set of lands, which I'm excited to talk about. These are not dual lands, so we kind of get to go through and decide whether these are actually worth taking or not, right?
Yeah. the default is always take them.
Hmm.
Um, but I like these. I think these are sweet. Um, so maybe we'll just read one. Uh, Quarry Mountain Monastery, for example.
Perfect.
This land enters tapped unless you control a plains or an island, and it's a red land. It taps to add red. And then you can pay 3 and a red, exile the top card of your library until the end of your next turn. You may play that card. I like this design a lot in particular because a lot of these types of lands, it's like you just slam it in mono red to give yourself a little bit of extra reach or a little bit of extra utility. But this land in particular does not want you to be in mono red. So I think that's cool. But yeah, I just love the take on tri lands that's a bit similar to um, like the fast lands or what are the lands we got?
The check
The
lands.
check lands, yeah. It's like a three-way check land with added utility. And
Hmm.
I like the theme that we've seen recently where there's sorry, check land is not necessarily the one I'm thinking of, right? Like the most recent ones that they tap for black and then they can
Oh,
tap
the
for red.
verges.
I'm thinking of them a bit in that framework because it's like there is a main color that your deck should be,
Hmm. Oh,
but then you
sure.
want these other colors to facilitate things. They sort of fall into that ballpark, except what's your main color for this? Is it red or is it blue or
White.
white?
Blue or white, yeah.
I think the
That's
idea is you're mostly blue and you play this
mhm.
as a red source, but then you need another red source to activate it. So I think it's really interesting design space that they've found here.
Yeah. No, that's true. I guess I was thinking of check lands. So Jeff was talking about the verges, which is the ones that are in standard currently. I was thinking about the check lands, which are ones that we got in Dominaria and original Ixalan, which were dual rare lands, and when they enter, they care about either one of the two colors. If you
Yeah.
had that land type,
Yeah, so the tapping ability, totally you're
looks
right, is
like the
like
check land.
those lands. I was thinking
Hmm.
it from the point of view of it's a land that wants you to play multiple colors, but wants you to think about what color am I more dominant in?
Yeah, which
And
I
that
think
matters.
makes a lot more sense. I don't even think I got even that far besides just like, yes, I want to take these. And
Yeah,
I
yeah. These are
wasn't,
great.
well, in the way that they just look, I just thinking, oh, these are kind of like try check lands. But you're so right that they're not really like that at all. And they're much closer to trying to figure out like how many of these do you want? Of which colors can you have of all the different ones? Like, are you playing the red one and the white one and the blue one in your deck, or do you need to lean into a certain land type to make things work and all that kind of stuff? So obviously we just read the red one, but they're all pretty interesting and fairly different. Uh, I
Yeah, they are
I
different.
I like the design space on this for sure. I think one of the ones that's getting a lot of attention and the one I might be focusing on the most for constructed, but the least for limited, is the blue one.
The blue one, yeah. That's all over the place.
Yeah. So the blue one is Mistrized Village, which is the teamer one. So it's blue, but it enters untapped if you have a mountain or a forest. Taps for blue, and you can pay a single blue and tap it, and the next spell you cast this turn can't be countered. The funny thing about this card is that it is going to be very strong in a bunch of constructed formats, or at least played or tried in a lot of constructed formats, because this type of effect is very helpful. It's a little bit more expensive than playing like Cavern of Souls or what's the other, Boseiju, the original Boseiju, also helps do this, I think.
Yeah. Sheltered.
Shelters all
Shelter
or
to
something.
all. Spell
Yeah,
Seiju who
yeah.
shelters all, something like that.
Yeah. Both of those cards help your creatures, I think, specifically. Uh, but this one can be any spell. It just costs 2 mana, basically, to do that. But yeah, so that will be very
Just a
exciting.
lot.
It
It's
is a
expensive.
lot. It's very expensive. But it will be definitely tried in the most excited. It's the card that's very anticipated for CADH, or I don't know. I don't know if
Sure, yeah.
legacy players are looking at it or modern or stuff like that. But It's the
Could
kind
be.
of card that they start to look at and are more excited about. However, this is the worst one for draft. So there
For sure.
is that
Yeah.
balance, right?
Uh, yeah, this one, like, it's interesting because I think if you're an aggro deck or whatever, you're just going to play Cavern of Souls. So this
Hmm.
almost is for like control mirrors. If I'm thinking
I
about
guess so.
standard, like
Hmm.
your blue-eye control deck plays it, or and it's for, or maybe it's like this actually is really good in overlords,
That's
because
what I was
a way that
thinking.
you like beat overlords is to just counter their stuff. Um,
Or counter their non-creature things, and this is like, no, you can't. It turns
right,
like your
exactly.
board
Like
wipes into
countering, yeah, countering
Supreme
the board
Verdicts.
wipe. So it's such a weird card because it's like I don't think I'm gonna care much about this. I'm not gonna play it,
No.
and it's not
Hmm.
gonna be good against the type of stuff that I play.
Hmm.
But it's very like whenever you have this like silver bullety kind of thing that's extremely good in certain situations, and you tap that, put that on a land, it ends up being like the opportunity cost to include that in your deck is so low, and it just randomly snipes games, and you just get like a boosted win rate from that. So I understand the hype around this one. It's not the one I'm excited about because I don't see myself really interacting with this.
Hmm.
Um,
I see myself interacting with this. It's just on the other side of the field.
yeah, but I'm just not
Yeah.
gonna care. It's like,
Yeah, yeah.
I play red black, dude. I'm not countering anything you do.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
I'm excited about the black one. I think the black one's really cool.
All right, well tell us what the black one is then.
Okay, so the black one is same thing. The ability is so it's Abzan. So it's
Hmm.
black. You need to have a forest or plains for it to come untapped. Taps for black. And then you could pay one and a black and exile a creature card from your graveyard to create a 1/1 white spirit creature token. Hold up, this is like Mirex, but better. Better.
Better? Well,
Cheaper.
okay. Yes, cheaper. It is interesting, and the
If you can
creatures block,
facilitate
obviously,
the creatures in the
and
graveyard thing.
you need the creatures in the graveyard. So it's just not free. It doesn't do the same like kind of control-y thing where you can just have it sit there and make tokens. But I want to hear your thoughts because you literally just said that you're a Rakdos player. This is an Abzan card.
Yeah. So I do also have a black-white aristocrats deck that I play in
Okay, sure,
standard
sure. Oh, sure, 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 sure.
that
Right,
this
right,
is
right,
really
right, right.
sweet in. Um, it there's a couple problems, right? In that deck, I have a one drop that's white and a one drop that's black, and I've always been like, I wish I could make them both black because the
Hmm.
black one is the better one. Um, so when I saw this card, I was like, yes, here we go. Now I have another like black source, and I can
Hmm.
just find a different black one drop. And I was like, wait a minute, this actually doesn't cast black one. It like explicitly does
Hmm.
not cast black one drops. And so I was like, is this mean I want white one drops? Like,
Yeah.
what? Now I'm all confused. The way they designed these cards is too good, and now I'm unsure of what decision to make. Um, the ability is very powerful, and the thing I like the most, I really like cards that use your graveyard, but don't go all in on it. Because
Hmm.
once you're all in on it, it's just
It's
like
easy
too
to,
easy to hate against. But
yeah.
like you're not going to bring in graveyard hate because your opponent has a couple of great Irration cities in their deck, right?
Hmm.
And so that kind of like getting a really powerful card that makes use of stuff in the graveyard without going all in on it always ends up being more valuable than it looks.
Yeah.
Because people are always like, ah, yeah, graveyard stuff, whatever. And it's like, well, you don't have to build a graveyard deck for this to be good. You just need creatures. You need a
Hmm.
creature deck. Um, and then this will like pull you ahead after they Wrath of God, right?
Hmm.
So this one I think is the most interesting, or the one I'm most interested in personally. The funny story, so I guess we're just gonna read them all. So
Hmm.
the interesting thing is the first one I saw was the green one, which is the Sultai one. So you need either an island or a swamp for it to enter untapped. You can pay three and a green to tap it to surveil two. I saw this one first, and I thought they all had the surveil two ability. Like I thought that was
Oh,
how the cycle worked. It's like this
yeah.
is all of them. And I was like, that's super boring for like
Hmm.
the activated abilities. Like it's good, I guess. Seems kind of expensive, three and a whatever to surveil. But I could see how this could pull you ahead in certain situations. Like I would definitely play it.
Hmm.
But okay, fine. Um, and then when I saw the blue one, I was like, wait a minute, is the green one just boring? And like all
Yeah.
the other ones are cool? Is that the cycle they went with? And
And
yeah,
yeah,
they're all cool. And then the green one's just boring. So
I will say the green one's the type of thing that like is strong in draft where like games go long and you want to be able to
yeah.
surveil and stuff. And so that's what you kind of expect on some of your lands to do things. But yes, definitely the most boring and the simplest, the smallest line of text of all of them for sure.
Well, yeah.
Um,
The most like reminder text, but
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Most reminder text, just telling you what Surveil 2 does.
yeah.
So then I'll read the last one. The white one is Delcoven Encampment. It's the Mardu one. So it comes into play untapped if you have a swamp or a mountain, taps for white, and you can pay 2 and a white, tap it. Whenever you attack this turn, create 2/1/1 red warrior creature tokens that are tapped and attacking, and then sacrifice them at the beginning of the next end step. So you basically just give one of your creatures mobilize 2.
Yeah. I like that this one is the one that's like explicitly just a mechanic.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess the surveil one is too, but this one,
This one's a new mechanic.
yeah.
Yeah. And aggressive, right? So it's nice that we have like a token. There's like a token land because in general token lands are really strong, but like the black token land actually gives you blockers, which is usually what you want with it. But you have to have something in your graveyard to get rid of. So the flavor is actually there, and then the white one's the one you can't just blue white control make a bunch of chumpy tokens to keep your planeswalkers alive thing. It's like no, you
Yeah.
actually have to attack.
Yeah.
So also, it doesn't go in that deck because this is Mardu anyway, so whatever.
Right. And it doesn't
But
start itself at all. Like you can't,
mhm.
it's like, oh, if you attacked, you make two instead of making one or something. Like, no,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
just
It's like no, you have
need
to
to be a creature deck that's going to be attacking to one of
or
these.
attack at some point, even if it does go in. Like, who knows if any of these lands like they say that there are certain color types or whatever, but like you could just say, oh, well, it's just a tap land and it has this ability. Like you don't
Definitely.
have to put it in those decks, right?
Yeah,
So
the red one I was talking about in particular, because like generally you're not interested in a always tapped land in mono red.
definitely not,
That would have
for
to be
sure
really
not.
good.
Hmm.
And I don't know that this one. Well, I mean, this one's pretty good, but is it good
It is,
enough to
yeah. I
like
don't know.
hamper your early game to get that extra reach? I don't know.
No, because the strongest thing you have is your early game. If you fumble on like turn 3, like the whole game is over. Like
Yeah,
it
exactly.
happens so fast.
And if I put
Uh,
one of these in my mono red deck, that motherfucker's in my opener every game.
every game.
And it's always like
Um,
two lands. One of them is this. What do you do?
yeah.
Ugh.
I wonder if this card wants to be in like those Boros Goblin decks or just like Boros in general. That could be
Yeah.
kind of interesting. Though I like you were saying, those are primarily red. So like you would kind of want to lean a little bit closer to white if you're trying to do that. So
Yeah. I
maybe
have to
maybe you
play
play
with these
the
to know. Like I think these want you to be in the other color more than they want you to be in their own color. But I have to play with them to like
I yeah, I think you're right. And in that case, I think that the Goblin deck probably wants the white one because that's more aggressive and is you're primarily red with a little bit of white. So
anyways, these are super cool. Normally we're just like,
mhm.
yeah, it's rare duels you take them. These were really interesting, so I thought worth actually talking about them.
I yes, and I'm glad that we did because we will talk about them more. But through all of them, I do agree with you. I think the black one is the best overall for what I think is most exciting in well, sorry, best. What I think is most exciting for constructed, but the best in draft as well. I like the
Oh
token
yeah,
creation seems way
that's
better than everything
nice in
else. Yeah.
draft. Yeah.
But Jeff, are there other cards that are exciting to you, or even if they're like I know we love talking about the no pass list, and obviously that's what this period of time is for, but there are just so many cool, crazy cards that I don't want it to feel like even if you want to just talk about a card that looks cool or is just like what the fuck, let's just talk about it.
Yeah, that's interesting because putting the no pass list together, a lot of the time it's like, oh, there's not that much I'm interested in because
Hmm.
I have very specific taste. This time it was like, there's so many things that I'm interested in, but I don't know
if I
Like
could take them.
I'm not committing to, I don't want to commit to
Hmm.
these things because I'm like, I don't know, this is just cool and weird. And like,
Yeah,
so my list is actually pretty sparse, but more from, there's just a lot of cool shit in this set. And I'm sure I will naturally end up taking a lot of them because a lot of it's good in draft anyways. So it's like,
totally.
I don't necessarily have to. That being said, one card I did check on for mine is Mox Jasper.
Mm.
Uh, I don't think this is a powerhouse in limited. And,
Wow.
I do think, these types of cards, even when they look too restrictive to be good, end up being good. And I'm just like, you know what? Been fooled enough times on these ones that I'm just going to take
It's
this
tr-
card.
After Mox Amber, I was like, you know what? I should just be taking these
Yeah,
because
just take, if it has Mox in the name,
yeah,
slap it in my pool.
Mox Amber when it first came out was highly frowned upon,
Yeah.
and it was like very cheap for a long time, and then it skyrocketed out of nowhere. So just I don't think people are going to fall for it again, and this one will probably eventually be worth something or just exciting at some point.
It's like
Uh,
with Mox Hammer, you never know what legends they're gonna print in the future. Like same
it's
thing
true.
here. They could print a one mana dragon, like
Or it literally if there's a changeling thing or something or
hmm
whatever, like you just don't know. Um, and the so Mox Jasper, I guess we didn't really read it, but I'm sure you've seen it. It's a zero cost artifact that's legendary, and it can tap for any color of mana, but only if you control a dragon.
yeah.
It's sitting right next to Ugin Eye of the Storms, which I think that they kind of go hand in hand, which is interesting. But before we actually just talk about Ugin, because I think we should,
Yeah.
um, Mox Jasper is the so being on the no pass list is really interesting for this card because in draft this is such a zero, like it's
Yeah.
just so awful that like the only feasible thing you could possibly think of doing or using in like using the card for in draft is if you're playing Jeskai and you just need a free card to play to get two spells in a turn. And that
Yeah.
happens one time. So it's such a zero horrible card in draft that you might get this on the wheel, is what I'm trying to say. Like it's like you might not even have to pick it for the no pass list because it's if you're playing Premier Draft and not against bots, people will probably pass this card. Like maybe after the first week, maybe the first week they won't, but after that, like you could probably pick these up fairly easily. So keep that in mind when you're looking at this card because you can't really add it to your deck because the only thing you want to do in draft is like play your dragons, and this doesn't help you do that. So like,
Yeah, dragons is such a weird one, right? Like, I
yeah,
think it's interesting to pick a creature type that is notoriously like super high in mana
expensive,
value.
which I
Yeah,
think is a great design. That's so interesting, right?
exactly. Yeah.
Um,
Changelings, of course, ruin everything, but
they do because they're not fair or real. Um, so I guess whenever you turn your changeling land into that thing, the one that we thought was terrible from Foundations,
yep.
I guess you could use your Mox Jasper there for
Oh
that.
yeah, by the time you turn that thing on, now Mox Jasper is active, baby.
Mhm. Yeah, hell yeah. So I did bring up Ugin Eye of the Storms. This is also a card that I think is like really cool and strong, obviously, but also kind of there's some interesting stuff going on with this card.
I love the idea of putting this on your no pass list though. Like you're not gonna take this.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, like sometimes you just hey, here's this mythic. It's a mythic planeswalker. It's really good. I'm going to take it for my deck, and also
Yeah.
because it's a colorless card, there's no reason you should ever pass this card.
Yeah.
So this is just trying to tell people, like, hey, obviously
Let's
take
just
it.
talk about Uget.
Yeah, let's just
what
talk
it's
about.
trying to
Well,
do.
that's also it. So Ugin Eye of the Storms is a 7 mana, or it's a 7 mana, 7 loyalty legendary planeswalker Ugin at Mythic. Says it has two abilities. It says when you cast the spell, exile up to
Technically,
one
it has
target.
5 abilities, Zach.
Okay, shut up. It says when you cast this spell, exile up to one target permanent that's one or more colors. So basically anything. When you cast
Except
it,
an opponent's Ugin.
oh sure, right, yeah, yeah. Yes, that will come up. I understand. Okay, thank you, Jeff.
You're still in the
Uh,
draft framework.
yes. I'm thinking like it's
That'd be a hell
literally
of a
everything.
draft game. Yeah.
Right. It's not your opponent's Mox Jasper. You can't get rid of that thing.
Yeah.
But when you cast it, you exile something. So it's essentially like a 7 mana meteor. It's a meteor golem. It's just, you could do that. Though I guess meteor golem destroys, but whatever, this exiles. It also has another piece of text that says whenever you cast a colorless spell, exile up to one target permanent that's one or more colors. So you do it again for every colorless spell you cast. Well, Mox Jasper is a zero cost colorless spell. I just want to play Ugin on 7 and just slam zero cost to Mox Jaspers down.
Yeah, then you'll really get your money's worth on the Ugin.
Yeah.
If that
So
Mox Jasper had been a Grizzly Bears and you cast Ugin later, I think you still probably win.
it just sounds like so much fun.
It
That's
does
all.
sound sweet though. It's just been like rotting in your hand.
I can't wait till I get my
Doesn't even
Ugin.
tap for mana because
Yeah.
Ugin is not technically a dragon.
Not even a dragon. So, but you can play like a bunch of them back to back, and they all legend rule each other out of the game. Anyway, I
Sounds
just thought that
awesome.
was so funny, and that's
I'm gonna lose to that somehow, and I'm just gonna be sitting there infuriated, sitting there like, what does my opponent have in hand? They're not doing anything, just like attacking them every turn. It's probably a wrath. I better not commit more to the board.
oh god, so funny.
No, it was the classic Ugin triple Mox
Yeah,
sandbag.
waiting for the seventh land. Anyway, that's not even the whole planeswalker. That's just the first two abilities. The loyalty abilities. The first one is +2. You gain 3 life and draw a card. Classic.
That's a hell of a +2.
Yeah, +2. Sick. Gain a bunch of life, draw cards after you exiled a bunch of shit. Sweet. There's a 0, which is just add 3 colorless mana to your mana pool. Sick.
Sure.
Okay. And then there's a -11. You can search your library for any number of colorless non-land cards, exile them, then shuffle. Until end of turn, you may cast those cards without paying their mana cost. So another Ugin, like whatever else you want in your deck. That is funny because that ability is like not exciting in draft. So like
You don't need it.
it's just the first thing and then drawing cards for the rest of the game.
You'll see Ugins go up to like 13,
Yes.
just 'cause, like, of course. Yeah.
Why am I gonna tick down to like
Yeah.
go play my Mox Jasper for free? You know, like
Haha! 6 Mox Jaspers.
yeah.
Oh no, that cost me my Ugin. They don't do anything again.
Oh god.
I like the design on this because the original Ugin, first of all, obviously they had to put an Ugin in here.
Yeah.
The original Ugin had the same like I'm colorless and I don't like multicolor or colored spells,
Hmm.
but it didn't reward you for playing other colorless spells. It just like all of the shit it did targeted like its big ability targeted stuff that was colored. So a lot like the static ability on this one,
Hmm.
but it didn't have the like I also want you to play colorless spells, which this one very much has.
Hmm.
For constructed at least. Like obviously
Yeah.
we're talking about
Well,
in draft,
the
it would be
two
your only colorless spell and it's still fucking awesome.
yeah,
Um,
but the two bottom abilities for sure really care about colorless stuff.
yeah, and the passive, right? Like so
Oh, sure, yes, yes, yes.
the passive basically is one ability. It's like whenever you cast a colorless spell, it just wants it to count itself, and since it's not going to be on the battlefield, yeah. So it's like, yeah, I like this design. It's obviously a powerhouse in limited, assuming that like 7 mana is semi-reasonable thing to get to in this format.
Hmm.
Even then, like you'd probably you open this at any point, you're building your deck to try to get to 7 mana and then
Hmm.
slamming this. Yeah, awesome card. I think there's room for this in constructed too, and I like the push because the previous Ugin was just used in ramp decks because it's like that's, the best sort of finisher kind of thing. It's like a board wipe slash finisher slash card advantage engine that just goes in ramp decks. This one is like asking a little more of you. And I think that's the
Hmm.
right takeaway from what happened with the previous Ugin is like, okay, let's not just have this be, like the Atraxa is the best reanimator target. This is the best ramp thing, like
Hmm.
which is very easy to do with a design like an Ugin Planeswalker. It could
Yeah.
always end up being this is the de facto thing to ramp into.
Yeah. Where you're like trying, like, I understand the designer's viewpoint of like, we want something big and splashy that's really cool. And like, that's the biggest, craziest thing I've ever seen or whatever. Um, but as far as the player's mindset goes, you can just get tired of those things. So we are able to praise like all the cards we talked about tonight are all really interesting designs. So great job on the
Yeah.
team. Like these are all pretty cool. And so I'm happy that we're coming back in form with some cool, interesting stuff that's like harkens back to other things, but has a nice way of doing a little twist on it, which is usually the best mechanics, honestly.
Yep.
All right, Jeff, is there something else you're interested in looking at? Any other cards that you're like, damn, but if I could just get my hands on that one.
Yeah. So you said that Mox Jasper was next to Ugin. I'm looking at set number ordering. And so
Hmm.
actually the card that I want to talk about is right next to Ugin for me because Ugin is number one. And number
Oh, yes,
two
yes, yes.
is Anafenza, Unyielding Lineage. I think, unless there's like weird commander versions that I don't know about, I think I've played every version of Anafenza that exists at some point, like in some capacity. And I always like them, and I like this one too.
Hmm.
So, uh, Anafenza, Unyielding Lineage is 2 and a white for a 2/2 flash first strike.
Hmm.
And whenever another non-token creature you control dies, it endures 2, which means you can either put 2+1/+1 counters on it or create a 2/2 white spirit creature token. Hold up. Hold up. Anytime I sack a creature, I get a 2/2 white spirit to replace it. And
That's just an upgrade.
I don't have to jump through hoops to make that happen. Like currently there's the racing one that does that if you have max speed.
Hmm.
But this just does it, and it has flash.
Ah,
Oof,
that's
I'm into
true.
this. So they're gonna kill something, you flash it in response. Thank you very much. That's like the base case. But if you have like, the aristocrats thing where you have a board that you could sack and you just want to double all your triggers, this can come in too.
You know what? That kind of actually makes me sad because this feels like it makes Zahur like obsolete, basically.
It's better than Zahur by a
Hmm.
lot, but Zahur's 2 mana and this is 3. That does matter.
Yeah, but it doesn't turn on for like 4 turns at least.
Yeah, but it helps you get max speed if other cards care about max speed.
I know, but maybe you can just drop max speed altogether, you know?
Yeah, this does kind of like I do like the Blood Artist guy with max speed,
One.
but
But
all
there's a
the other
bunch of
ones are
blood
there to
artists, right?
support that guy. But yeah, but he makes a creature. He's 2 creatures plus Blood
That's
Artist.
true, that's true, that's
He's
true.
dope.
That's true.
But this one, and like, just even if you're not doing aristocrats, you're just like on the face of it. You're playing some sort of creature deck, right? Like Day
Hmm.
of Judgment is a massive card against creature decks right now. You get to just hold this up. They cast Day of Judgment, flash this in, place my army with a bunch of 2/2s. Like, thank you very much. That's already decent. You know what I
It
mean?
is.
Just the like, this is a flasher that when creatures die, you get to make 2/2s. That's really, really useful for a lot of like any white-based creature deck, basically. At least we'll want to sideboard this against Day of Judgment or really heavy removal black decks. Anything
Hmm.
that doesn't exile. So obviously, Sunfall's a problem still. But a lot of these decks rely on Day of Judgment on turn 4. Like
Hmm.
they have to do that. So I don't know, I just dig this card. It goes particularly well in like the types of decks that I've been tinkering with recently, but just any sort of white-based creature deck, I think you're going to want access to this, or you're going to want to consider this card in the 75.
Yeah, absolutely. Uh, no, this is sweet.
And
It's a
it's just
cool
like a
card.
flash for striker, right? Like sometimes mono red will attack into this. You'll be like, bing,
Hmm.
picked you up. Like,
Oops.
yeah.
I agree. It is sweet. I used to play a lot more like aggressive white decks, and so I would have been all over this, but I haven't been doing that nearly as much. So
I
I'm
know. I'm
excited.
surprised that
I know, I
you know.
know. So I'm excited to see what you're gonna do with it. Um, but uh, but yeah, there is a card that I do want to talk about. That is, I've been leaning a little bit more red recently, and that's why
Okay.
I'm looking at this card.
Okay. All right.
Um,
That's acceptable.
yeah.
Welcome.
So yeah,
We'll
yeah,
get you
yeah.
on red black one of these days.
I was trying not to talk about this card tonight, but it's honestly, it would be a lie if it wasn't on my no pass list. Maybe I'm going to talk about it next week as well for our first sips when we do our worthless lots. But Corey Steel Cutter.
I
I've been
knew it.
waiting.
I was
I,
literally staring at that card.
yeah.
I'm like 90% sure this is what he's gonna say.
All right. So it's one in a red for an artifact equipment at rare. And it says equipped a creature gets +1/+1 and has trample and haste. It also has flurry. This is the best part. Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, create a 1/1 white monk creature token with prowess. You may attach this equipment to it. And the equipment cost or equip cost is one in a red. So
Is
you
this good with
never.
one drops?
This is great with one drops. It's just like, oh, double spell. Just do literally anything you want to do. Like, just play a bunch of cards, make tokens, equip this to it. The tokens have haste and trample, attack. You can play more things on top of it to make them bigger because they all have prowess. Like, this card is awesome. This is basically just you count this as a creature in a lot of those like low to the ground decks because you're like, this is a creature. It
Yeah.
pumps out so many fucking things.
The
It
only
survives.
thing that's
Oh,
awkward
go
about it,
ahead.
I think, is it doesn't interact the way it doesn't interact with Swift Spear the way I want it to, where I get to put the Swift Spear down and then this and get it all, like trigger the
Mm.
prowess on the Swift Spear. I have to play this first, but that's a small price to pay, I think, for. But it's basically
The
a 2/2 trample haste prowess with upside for two.
I I agree. Um, one and I don't know. It's so cheap. The equip cost, even if you have to put it, I mean, like you're hopefully never having to use this as like
Yeah,
you ever have to equip it.
when you look on the face of it, you're like, red aggro deck is going to pay one in a red to play it and then one red to equip. Like, that's not the game plan. You are
No,
hoping to never ever do that. And in a
it's
deck where everything has haste, like you can, everything's a one drop with haste. Like this is just a turn three play. It's one drop plus this, like
mhm.
almost every time.
I also think it's really interesting because sometimes people like to talk about mono red decks being like similar to Elf Ball, where it's like vomit your hand as fast as possible. Every card deals damage. How do you count to 20 faster? And this card is like only cast two spells a turn because you want to make sure that you have enough fuel to keep this token generator going throughout things, like throughout turns and everything. Not saying that you're casting three spells in a turn a ton of the time, but it does kind of change your deck building ideas because a lot of the time you do want to be playing things like the Bird Wizard, Slick Shot Show Off, and things
Hmm.
like that. So, do we want to play this specifically in that deck? We don't really know because maybe we want to go a little bit more. The pace is a little bit different than a burst of like four spells, or it's like maybe I just want to hold back and use those spells over two turns. So I'm interested in what that can be and what we can kind of do with that, and maybe it also sits in another space that's not necessarily specifically just mono red burn, but other the different flavors of if you're using prowess or if you're doing goblins or whatever. Obviously, this is monk, so you're probably not playing with goblins with it, but
Yeah, no, that's a good point too. I kind of like defaulted in my head to like you get the first monk, you're happy, so whatever.
mhm.
But you get more monks. Like
Yeah.
you could keep going if you're careful. So, I personally and we've talked about this before, I'm of the opinion that Mono Red was always a very skill testing deck. It's just that
Hmm.
the like individual cards themselves generally feel self-explanatory, like Lava
Hmm.
Spike, right? I think you look at
Well,
Lava Spike, you're like, this is clear what it does, what I'm supposed to do with it, etc. But there's a reason that there are people who have made their careers on always winning with mono red and like
Hmm.
knowing how to play that deck, because the strategy in and of itself requires a lot of skill to pilot. But I will say that recently they've done a good job of making individual skill testing cards that are like designed, if not strictly for mono red, but like with mono red in mind. This is
Hmm.
another example where it throws off that usual cadence of like play the most damage every turn.
Hmm.
Um, which again, I think is it's the classic, like it's probably the right thing to do 90% of the time, but you make your career on the other 10% of the time.
Yeah.
But this card, yeah, it's a very skill testing card, sort of obviously. You just read it and you're
Hmm.
like, whoa, do I play my one drop on, on turn
Turn.
one, or do I sandbag it so that I can play
Yeah.
it on turn three with this?
Like we're living, you're saying lava spike, but we're living in a bolt wave world, right? Where it's like, do you bolt wave on turn one, or do you have to save it for later?
Right. And those are the kind of
Um,
decisions that people like to not think about, just do it, say that the deck's all luck, and then lose to mono red all the time when people
mhm.
actually know what they're doing.
Yeah.
But yeah, this card is awesome. And I will say, you know who holds this pretty well? Bastronaut.
Ooh, oh,
Huh?
that's
Match made in
true. That's
heaven.
true. Double strike, trample, haste. I love all those things. I love all that stuff.
It's a
Ooh,
one
that's pretty.
drop too.
Hmm. That's true. That's true. The last thing I want to say about this, which is pretty self-explanatory, but like, this is one of the cards that helps you survive board wipes and then rebuild right after it.
Yeah,
So
it sticks around. So
yeah, if you're good at sandbagging and you're aggressive and can kind of identify on turn 4 or 5, you're just going to stop playing stuff and you build up turns in the following things where you have this already on the battlefield. It's just like they have to wipe at some point, then you get to just like rebuild every turn and make more
I feel
creatures.
like you're gonna get into these interesting things because it's like the incentive on this is to keep playing spells because then you
Hmm.
keep getting the free one ones. But sometimes you're gonna be like, well, I gotta like my game plan is to sandbag those for the board wipe. So what's the right number to
Hmm.
apply the right amount of pressure? The classic like aggro versus control question. I think this makes that question even more important. Like, what's the
Hmm.
right number of spells to hold so that I can rebuild to the appropriate level afterwards so that I'm still threatening?
Yeah.
But, you know, I also need to apply pressure, and the way that I apply pressure with this card is to play lots of spells.
Yeah. It's also an interesting card because right now, like there is what Azorius control is like around standard, whether it's like really big or not. But like that's like one of the
I think it's a
controlling
decent
decks.
deck. I think
Yeah.
it's a solid
But
one.
like this is a nice artifact where they have just get lost, which destroys creatures and enchantments, right? And
Yeah.
so you're in a nice little spot with your artifact equipment that's just like
A
you
lot of
have to.
people are prepared for enchantments right now in
Yeah,
particular. Yeah.
especially because Overlords is big too, right? So
Yeah.
this card looks super exciting. Man, I talked about it so much, and now I want to take it for a worth a slot. I feel like I should have sandbagged this one. Oh, maybe I played my cards before the board wipe.
You played into the wrath, man.
Oh God. Well, maybe we'll talk about it again
Day
next
of
week. Who
judgment is
knows?
upon you.
Who knows? But I love this card. Jeff, do you have any more worth a slots before we move on?
Um, no, I think there was one other card I just wanted to talk about,
Sure.
which is actually an uncommon. I just wanted to mention it. And
Okay.
it's Skirmish Rhino. I
Yeah.
I love this card. So Skirmish Rhino is a white, black, green for a 3/4 trample, and when it enters, each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. So this is a obvious homage to Siege Rhino.
Hmm.
And I love the idea that they have a smaller version that they pull out for skirmishes.
Yeah.
But like the big one, that's when they are sieging. They're like, we got the big rhinos for that one, and it's just like one smaller in every respect. It's instead of a
Hmm.
4/5, it's a 3/4. Instead of 4 mana, it's 3 mana, and instead of draining for three, it drains for two. I was just like, when I saw this, I was like, chef's kiss on that one. Love it.
Yeah. I think this card is so funny. The one thing I have to say about it is that why did they give us Debris Beetle right before this?
Right.
Like, don't tease me, but don't give me like basically Siege Rhino and like equipment or a vehicle, and then give me another version later.
Yeah.
I think that was a two teams not talking to each other kind of
Yeah,
thing.
both were like, we're gonna do the Siege Rhino homage, and
Yeah, the team that's doing Aether Drift. Oh, we're gonna do the Siege Rhino
hey,
homage.
actually, maybe that happened, right? They're like,
Yeah,
you know what? Fuck those Dragonstorm
yeah.
guys. They think they're all
We're
that.
yeah, we'll steal their thunder. Let's just quickly. Oh, well, that's in Black's color identity. What you can't get mad about it.
Yeah.
Ridiculous. Honestly, if anything, not to get back on Aether Drift stuff, but they should have just made that effect, but it should have been red white. It should have been like a lightning helix or like
The
vehicle.
exact opposite.
It would have been like way better. But anyway, I digress. But no, Skirmish Reiner is like hilarious. I love the art for it too. And like the flavor text is basically saying like slowly the clans have begun to recover and adapt long forgotten tactics. So it almost gives it the hint of like all of our rhinos died and we have to breed new ones and they're all really
Right. Yeah,
small right
yeah.
now.
That's I
So
never noticed that flavor text too. That adds a new dimension to it. It's
yeah,
like
it's
we
like
haven't worked our way back to the siege rhinos, but we're getting there.
you were
Yeah.
getting there. Well, now because we have like Siege Rhino and Skirmish Rhino, what would be the bigger version, right? Are we going to get a big
Oh,
one at some point?
true.
Like a
We
five
need
mana one?
yeah. We need like Armageddon Rhino or something.
Arm-
Calamity Rhino.
Except for that one makes your opponent sacrifice 3 lands and
Oh,
you
I would play. Oh my God.
Armageddon Rhino?
Imagine it's like a 5/6 that trains for 4 and destroys all lands.
That would be amazing. That would be so good.
Unrealistically good card.
Yeah. Honestly, if they ever made a creature that Armageddon stuff, like as it ETB'd, it
Yeah.
would have to probably be like 0 or negative power, basically.
It would be in an unset. That's the only way it's possible.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. But I super agree. I love this callback, and this is a great one. Also, I'm happy to see it often in draft because it's an
Oh yeah,
uncommon.
that's a good draft card if you could cast it.
Yeah, and I think you'll be able to. There's a lot of good ways to cast cards in this set.
Yeah,
All right, good ways to cast cards. Yeah, lands. They're around.
they're a way.
They're one of the ways, probably maybe the primary way. All right.
Really going out on a limb with that. It's a hot
know,
take.
Yeah. You heard it here
Lands are
first,
the main
folks.
ways you cast stuff.
The other ways are moxes, which
Yeah,
most of
vintage
us,
players are like, what the fuck are you talking about?
yeah,
I don't use
like,
lands.
yeah. I don't use lands. I have one land.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, sorry. Let's get back on track. We are doing the Pack Zero Pick One Challenge. So we do this with every set for our pregame episode before the set comes out. We like to go through and pick for different categories, the essentially the best commons and one best uncommon and one best rare. This is not something that we came up with ourselves. Magic Data Science over on Twitter and Blue Sky has been doing this for quite a while, and we just heard about it last year. So we've been adopting this thing, and we're using their template. So if you're interested in what we're doing, we'll put a description or a link in the show notes. Check that out. You should play along as well. We'll be posting on our social media and stuff, and you should go give them some love because this is the best thing to do before a set comes out. It is so much fun, and it will make you feel bad about yourself sometimes. But hey,
I
that's
get
what hot takes
humbled
are for.
every time.
Every single time.
The only
honest,
correction I'll make is that it's data and template, but otherwise,
right. Well, this Canadian's getting mad at my American speaking. It's called LaCroix, Jeff. LaCroix.
I don't even know what you're referencing. Is it lacrosse or the soda La Croix?
Yeah, I don't. None of that stuff. All right, here we go. So this set for Tarkir Dragonstorm, it's a little bit different than normal. So this time we're going to be talking about the best common for every single color: white, blue, black, red, green, and then what we think is the best non-monocolored common, which includes any artifacts or any lands, as well as there are a few tri-colored commons, and we're using color identity, so there's a few looking seemingly monocolored cards that are also they have color identity that's different. There's a miscellaneous common, just another common that you think is great. It can be anything, as well as the gold signpost uncommons, but we're only for this set only talking about the two colored ones. There are also commons that are or uncommons, sorry, that are tricolored, but we're not looking at tricolored cards besides the non-monocolored ones. And then, of course, at the end, if there's a tiebreaker, we pick a rare that we think is the best, but we only look at that if there's a tie, which never happens because that just doesn't happen. Oh, also, sorry, I said all of this stuff as if you would understand. We are taking data from 17lands.com. We are specifically looking at the game in hand win rate for each card. At the end of the draft format, essentially, we'll see who wins, and in our happy hour episode, we'll talk about that and kind of say who's doing who did the best, who made the best picks, essentially.
I'm gonna get you this time. Feel like I always lose, but this time,
I don't know. I feel like you win often enough, but the last one was so close that like it's just
that was a real heartbreaker.
that was a real heartbreaker. All right, well, Jeff, let's start with you because we started with me last time. We'll start with white, and then we'll kind of snake
See,
back
the
and
thing
forth.
is, that might not even be true. I don't know. I'm just gonna trust you.
Yeah, I just say that to make you feel better, but
Yeah, you're just like you didn't want to start, so you just said. No, I feel like with this set, I don't know. Maybe I'm missing it. Maybe I'm missing something. But I think white was the one I'm feeling best about. Uh, I'm just gonna pick Stormplane Detainment,
all
which is
right.
2 and a white for an enchantment. When it enters, exile target non-land permanent opponent controls till this leaves the battlefield. Got your classic O-ring here. Always solid. Can't be can't be bad.
It can't be bad. You're right. You're right. It can't be bad. Um, I'm picking a different card.
Oh boy. Already off to that kind of start.
Yeah, already off to that start. I am picking this card. I'm excited about this card.
Okay.
But it might be because there's a certain archetype that I think is really interesting. Whether it's actually going to pan out or not, I don't know. But I really like Salt Road Pack Beast.
Okay. That's
So
fair.
yeah, it's a 5 and a white for a 4/3 creature beast. It says this spell costs one less to cast for each creature you control, and when this creature enters, you draw a card. So obviously, I'm talking about either Endure or Mobilize, Mardu or Abzan. Abzan makes tokens, and Mobilize also makes tokens. Hopefully, they're alive at the end of combat. But anytime I have a nice body of a creature enter, and I get to draw a card, I'm pretty happy with that. So this guy looks interesting, but I don't think this can be terrible. But I think it. If those archetypes are stronger and you have lots of tokens, you can play this for like 3 mana would be acceptable and really good. 2 mana would be
3 mana would be
amazing.
fucking awesome. 3 mana for 4/3 draw a card that's a great limited card. They
Yeah,
can't
and so
print that.
you need three other creatures on the battlefield for that,
Two
which doesn't
is
always
nuts, and one is
two
obviously the dream.
exactly. Yeah, so if you could get the dream of paying 1 mana for this, that's just going to be
And
how
you
many of
will.
these do you have in your deck?
It will happen, right?
Hmm.
Like, um, it's just the weird kind of weird thing is like in those situations, it's probably some sort of like board stall kind of thing. And how good is the
Hmm.
4/3? But developing your board, drawing the card, it's still gonna be sweet.
It's
I like
true.
this card. Yeah, it was in my top 12. Really like it.
Oh. Jeff
No,
says that
no,
because
yeah.
there's 12 cards to pick from.
I do really. This was one of the contenders,
Hmm.
but eventually I was just like, the variance on this is a little higher, I think, than on the Stormplay Entertainment, where it's like
It's
some
true.
situations this is just going to be a 6 mana 4/3 draw card, which is a little underwhelming, of course.
Very underwhelming
Uh,
in that situation. And you're right, Stormplane Detainment is a very strong card. And so we'll have to see if we can blow up enough enchantments or all that stuff. You never know. You never know. Let's move on to blue.
Yeah,
So
what you got for me?
we're snaking this one. I thought I'd go out. I go off with a bang. Boom, boom. Two of the same fucking card, buddy. We're playing Sibsig Appraiser.
I knew that that's what you were gonna say when you said you were snaking it. I
Yeah.
was like, okay, I see where he's going with it.
I wasn't even thinking about that, but yeah. So Sibsig Appraiser is two and a blue for a 2/1 creature zombie advisor. It says when this creature enters, look at the top two cards of your library, put one of them into your hand and the other into your graveyard. So this is another creature for 3 mana, essentially, that you draw a card.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know why I'm laughing so much because it just seems so funny to pick
Zach's made
both
his
of the.
choice on what he thinks is going to be good in this format.
I think that
It's
creatures
value
that draw
ETB
cards,
creatures.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think that that's going to be good.
I don't know. Like, is there some sort of limited precedent for that? Like, wow, you're really going crazy here.
I know. It's as if like, hey, creatures that draw cards when they enter is good and limited. I don't know.
Yeah.
Is it one of
Hearing
my
that for
favorite
the
things to
first time.
do? Is it my favorite thing to do in Peasant Cube? I don't know. I don't know. Um,
Um,
but I think this is great. Like this is better than like 3 mana 2/1 draw a card, because you get to also look at two cards and you get to put one in your graveyard, which
yeah.
all of those things in blue can be really great for Sultai or Teamer, the decks that care about putting stuff in their graveyard. So this card seems great. The
Yeah.
body's obviously less exciting than a 4/3, but I think that's just going to be something we're interested in. And I don't know if we're getting run over this set. We'll have to see.
Yeah, like a 2-1, it still helps, like getting on the board early and stuff.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I think it's crazy that you picked this card. Um, like, like it must be the wrong pick because, and I know this for a fact,
Hmm.
because I also picked it. So, uh, there's no way you're right. Sorry to trash your pick here by also picking it. Like I've you know jinxed it, as it were.
Well, I mean, like it
But
only happened.
obviously, this is a card I love.
Yeah, and I knew that this would be a card that you loved as well. So like, I. I've been looking at these cards for a long time too. I've been working at my set review, so like, I've been thinking for so long. What's Jeff going to pick? What am I going to pick? What are we going to do?
Right. Yeah.
So I thought that it was very high, like highly possible that you could take this one. Also, a lot of the other blue commons, like we can kind of chat about them, but like there's nothing super exciting. There's a part of me that thought maybe you'd want to be picking like Humbling Elder just because like you love cards like that. Um,
Yeah. It it felt like a bit of a like in that one you're expecting the format to go a more specific way, I think,
yeah,
is
it's
kind of
true.
the tiebreaker.
Hmm.
Um, Normally I would be like, okay, we have the Sibsig Appraiser, the value creature. The competitor is like the dehydration effect. But
Hmm.
this time it's the ringing strike mastery, which I'm not psyched about. So
Yeah,
um, yeah, it felt like choice was
I
made
think
for
it's
me
good.
by Wizards. They didn't put a
It,
dehydration effect in here, so I didn't have to fight that battle of like the classic blue removal spell against the classic value creature. I always want to take the
mhm.
creature, but the removal spell ends up winning, and I
Looks
don't
so
know.
good,
Yeah.
yet you don't know. Yeah, and Ringing Strike Magic. Oh my gosh, that 9% is really hitting me right
Oh
now as
yeah.
we get into this. Oh God,
I'm about to
Ringing
go off the rails and just take random cards.
soon,
I was like,
very
this wasn't
soon.
the plan.
Ringing Strike Mastery is a single blue, and it taps their creature and doesn't and their creature isn't untapped during their controller's untap step, but they can pay 5 to untap that creature, which is similar to literally the
Singing Bell
same card,
Strike.
Singing
Yeah.
Bell Strike, which costs 2 mana, and I think it was 6 to untap it. Um,
Yeah.
but what would happen is that like it's helpful for like quick early games, but at the end of the game they just untap and they can block all your shit, and then like
And Singing Spell Strike had a place in its
Hmm.
format. It was
It
quite good
did.
in the right deck, but it was not the like universal blue removal spell. And this looks
Exactly.
like the same thing to me.
Yeah. This looks like Just Guy is going to be excited, but almost nobody else.
This looks like Singing Bell Strike, but worse in terms of its ability as a removal spell. But like you're saying, better in its ability to trigger second spell
What he's trying to do.
matters. Yeah.
Exactly. Which is also Humbling Elder is very similar, which is the
Yeah.
sometimes we see this. It's a single blue for a 1/2. It has flash, and when it enters, target creature an opponent controls gets -2/-0 until end of turn. Which
Yeah.
certain formats have been able to utilize a similar effect very well. But whenever I see those cards, I think about Jeff because he liked that effect in Zendikar Rising.
It wasn't even this. It was like
It was way better. It was
that
way
one
better.
like gave -4/-0 and drew a card. This
Yeah.
is worse than that.
I know, but I just think about that every time.
I know
I know,
that
I
card
know.
was great. That card was
It
great.
was. I'm not saying that it's bad. I'm just saying that it reminds me of you. That's a good thing, Jeff.
I appreciate that.
Yeah,
All
okay.
right, so the black is my choice. Ugh,
Hmm.
I was back forth all around on this one.
This one's hard.
I think I think I've landed on Dragon's Prey.
Oh, you picked the same one that I picked. Damn it.
I think let me read Dragon's Prey. Two and a black,
Hmm.
destroy target creature for an instant. Wow, it sounds like even better murder. You're right. But it also says the spell costs two more to cast if it targets a dragon. And there are a lot of dragons in this set.
Hmm.
But my thinking is, for the most part, this is better murder. And when there's a powerful dragon you have to face down, dragons tend to have a high enough mana value that you're kind of okay paying the tax. And they're powerful enough that you're okay paying the tax in that case.
Hmm.
So, trading 5 mana to remove your opponent's 5 mana dragon, that's not that big a deal. And then otherwise having the two and a black instant destroy target creature, like I think we talked about Dark Banishing last show or
Hmm.
something. It's
We
like,
did.
yeah, here we fucking go.
Here we go.
Um, so I think this is what I landed on. I think Caustic Exhale is also a pretty reasonable choice, depending, but it's a little more demanding of the format being specific, uh, fast, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Um, I went with you on this one, and for all the exact same reasons that you had said that like literally Dragon's Prey kills anything, even though it might cost a little bit more. And Caustic Exhale is it's a single black, but if you don't show a dragon, it costs one in a black, and target creature gets -3/-3 until end turn at instant speed. This only kills little stuff, and this format has a lot of like +1/+1 counter stuff, even or like dragons or things that are big. And like I think this card's gonna be very good, and you should still take Caustic Exhale, and it will kill the little stuff, and it's probably gonna keep the little stuff down, so the big stuff can reign, which is why I wanted Dragon's Prey as the
Yeah.
best.
What I like about Caustic Exhale is
Hmm.
the design like really comes together here, where it's like, hey, if you have a dragon in your hand, you probably want to play the long game, which
Hmm.
means you need help to survive against any aggressive threats. In
Yeah,
those situations, I only cost you 1 mana. And I
yeah.
like that the idea there. It's like the classic or the thing I learned from Ben Stark, which is like big decks want cheap removal and small
Hmm.
decks want big
Big
removal
removal. Yeah.
because those are the roadblocks to their game plan.
Hmm.
And this fits right in there. It's like if you're a dragon deck, you're planning on like winning the late game with the dragon, I'll be 1 mana and I'll kill the early game for you. And I think
Hmm.
that could end up being pretty valuable in this format, assuming that like an early game
It's
aggro deck kind of exists. Like it's possible to go under the dragons. If it
hmm.
ends up being a format where it's like you always want to just like take dragons and go big, then this card's not going to be the best. Um,
Yes,
it can still like help you win combat against other
of
dragons. Like it's
course, of
still
course.
decent.
Hmm.
But yeah, the way this is going to play out in my head is like it's going to be faster than you think. I I think because
This format.
yeah, because I think when you like okay, cons like wickedly slow, and they like to mess with people where they're like, yeah, last time you came
Hmm.
to Tarkir was all about being slow. Now it's not about that anymore. They also just did a slow set, and I think just thinking, oh, it's about dragons, that means it's going to be slow, is going to be kind of people are going to
Oh,
naturally tend that way, you know?
you're so right. The one thing I will say is that, like, yes, Tarkir was extremely slow. I don't think we're ever going to see a draft format that is that slow
No,
ever again.
no, but
That's
you
just,
try to like scale it for,
of
it's like
course,
adjusting for inflation, right?
yeah.
Like,
But I think that with Aether Drift, they had a pretty good spot with how slow it was, and I think they're going to try to hit that spot. They hit the nail, and they're going to try to keep hitting the nail, and I think that's what they're hoping for.
okay.
And so I think they're going to hope that they hit that again. Whether they do or not, I don't know.
Mhm.
But I don't think they're intentionally trying to throw us off.
Yeah, no, I didn't mean that so much as like I think your thesis is essentially that there's a perfect speed that they're trying to like hit
Hit,
with
yeah,
every set. And I'm saying like they probably want to vary it so that different players enjoy. Like you don't want to just
totally.
throw five slow sets in a row and then people who like fast sets don't play your game anymore. So they probably the fact that the last set was slow probably does lead to a higher chance that the next set is slightly faster.
Is slightly faster. I can definitely agree with that. But I guess what I'm saying is that I think that they've been hitting so many fast sets, and I've become a
Yeah,
limited player because I love fast sets, that I think that they're
but that's the
trying to
thing. I
slow it
think
down.
people let, limited resources is skewing the results. But I
It's
think people
true. That is
generally
true.
prefer fast sets, and that's
Well,
why they're making more of them.
people like winning, and people who are fairly inexperienced tend to either land on the side of I'm really interested in playing the aggressive deck or the slow clunky one, and often the players that are just like, yeah, I feel really good, and they become tournament grinders through that, and I think that they
Right.
see
I
turn
can
like not
play
turnover, but
either or like
yeah,
it goes
they.
back to the classic "Who's the beatdown" article, right? Which is like
Mhm.
identifying the role you're playing in the game is step one
Is
essentially.
step one, and exciting. I literally used that article and just like those words for every game that I play. And oftentimes now, actually, this is funny. My folks were in town recently, and we were playing a bunch of different games. And to not only help teach the game, but help me process my thoughts, I would just talk out loud about what I was thinking because it's like now I just do that all the time when I'm streaming. So I'm just very used to
Right.
it. But
Yeah.
it's also a helpful way to explain how the world works or what I'm thinking strategically. So I'm like, okay, so I think that you're doing this and I think you're doing this. So I'm going to do this thinking that these are the things that I'm doing. You know, not necessarily in the hopes that I'm going to win that game. I don't really know because that's not always the point when I'm playing with my family, whether I'm like win or not,
Yeah, yeah.
because the point is that everyone knows how the game works and that they enjoyed it. Like
Right.
that's the
Yeah.
purpose. So explaining my thought process through everything was helpful to get everybody on board with what's going on. Now I feel like I forgot what my train of thought was, why I was talking about this in the first place. God, this beer is fucking me up, buddy.
It's
I'm
a big
taking
one.
us on tangents.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah, that's
um,
unusual. Normally I derail and
I
Zach has
know,
to
I
has to bring us
know,
back.
I know. Holy shit. But I don't even know what that is. Anyway, um, uh, yeah, we'll see what this format has to do. Let's just go on to red. Let's talk about the red cards. Oh God. So it's my turn to pick. And I picked probably this is probably the most boring pick for me. I did not feel super enthralled with a lot of these, so I'm interested to hear what you have to say. Unless you also picked the same card, which is a very high possibility.
Feel like
Because
we
I
did.
picked,
It's
yeah,
based on the lead up, I feel like there's no chance we
yeah,
didn't pick the same
I
card.
picked Molten Exhale,
Yeah.
which is the dragon card. It's one in a red for a sorcery. You may cast this card. You may cast this spell as though it had flash if you behold the dragon. And it deals 4 damage to target creature or planeswalker. So 2 mana dealing 4 damage to a creature or planeswalker is quite strong and usually something that you see at higher rarities. And see, having it on common is really exciting. And the fact that it sometimes is instant speed is great.
Yeah,
Um,
very. It's hard. As soon as I read this card, I was like, the bar is so high for me to pick
it's
anything else here.
so
Like,
high.
I just don't see a world where I pick something other than this after reading it. Like, what common did they print where I'm
Yeah,
so confident that that card is better than this? Like any other pick, this might not be the best common, right? There might be another card that ends up being better. But to choose that ahead of time requires you to know exactly how the format's going to play out because
hmm
every other common it has less raw power, but could be better in like very specific
specific situations.
circumstances.
Yeah,
And so you just have to take the one that is just like an absurdly high raw power level for a common in draft.
it's true. Like the other things are like you could take like Twin Bolt, which is the same mana cost but deals 2 damage divided among permanents, which is
Yeah.
fine, but not great. I don't know.
Actually, I'm
If
glad you brought up Twin Bolt because I meant to say this earlier. The existence of Twin Bolt was the only thing that made me like second guess the Sig Appraiser pick because I was like, but then I was like, do you even feel that bad? If your opponent like deals one to you and picks off
mm-mm,
your Sig Appraiser, like,
you do not feel bad.
even if they
No,
pick off two appraisers, are you that upset? Like, no.
no.
Yeah, you're fine. Like each of those cards replaced itself.
Yeah.
So
So the existence of Twin Bolt does affect my choices on certain cards, but not the appraiser. No, no, no,
not
no,
the
no.
one that replaces itself with additional value.
Immediately. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course not. Though Twin Bolt in general does make me feel like some aggressive decks might not be as aggressive, like X1s in general and tokens that are only 1/1s might get sniped really easily. So,
Yeah. X1s look bad, but the other thing, like I was thinking about twin bolts because, obviously we're considering the options here, but
mhm.
I feel like it's going to be a not that uncommon play pattern that you're twin bolting like mobilized things to stay alive. You know what I mean? Like that's just
Sure.
rough.
That is
That's
rough.
not a place you want to be.
That does sound horrible. I was kind of in the camp of like Twin Bolt will help you kill some of the spirit tokens that are
Mhm.
enduring. Um, but yeah, if you have to Twin Bolt things to stay alive from mobilize, that's
I feel like
awful.
you're off, like the extra value you get out of Twin Bolt is often being pointed at like a mobilized token to save a life. I guess that's a better
hmm
way to say it. Like,
Oh,
oh,
sure,
I'll
sure.
kill this, and then I can
And
also pick off that mobilized token. It's like
yeah,
that's not exciting.
that's definitely not exciting. So I think what's going to happen is that like the format will be kind of aggressive early. People will start picking Twin Bolt very highly, and then they will switch, and then Twin Bolt will be picked a lot less because the cards no longer have 2 toughness
Right.
or a bunch of 1 toughness stuff. And it will
Yeah.
set itself straight, and then a Twin Bolt will eventually kind of sit low, I think. While we want to be able to deal 4 damage to something. That's kind of my thought process through the
I
Molnix
kind
Sale
I kind
thing.
of think power creep has just like left Twin Bolt behind, and
Yeah.
it's this set is going to show that. I think this is going to be
Yeah.
like a mid pack to potentially lower mid pack con.
This will be the last time, hot take, this will be the last time that we see Twin Bolt printed. The
Oh
next time
damn.
we see it printed will be in Final Fantasy and it will be Tri Bolt. That's what's going to
Oh,
happen.
that is a hot take. Will it
Yeah, it's
cost two still, or
yes.
will it cost three?
It'll cost 2.
So you got to keep that symmetry alive. You know?
Yeah. 2 mana, 3 damage. Separate.
All right, all
Very
right.
intense. But okay, but I definitely see this being the last time Twin Bolt's ever printed.
I could see that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, being like, hey, this is Lightning Strike, but it deals 3 damage to 3 target permanents, not players, because that obviously power creeps Lightning Strike,
Yeah.
which obviously makes it way worse. But anyway, um, let's move on. I think it's your pick for green.
Yeah. Now there's a
Is it
card
mine?
in here that I love, but also
hmm
I think let's just talk about it. I didn't pick it, but
Okay.
didn't we already have this card? So this is Wayfarer. One in the green, 1/1. When it enters, mill three cards. You may put a land card from among them into your hand. If you don't, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. Didn't this exist already? It's an elemental from like a couple of
Yeah,
years ago.
Brothers War.
So it's just like a functional reprint that's Dog Scout now.
Yeah, there's another card in this set that's a functional reprint of another card.
Hmm.
Hmm. Interesting.
Anyways, I got excited because it read like that other one. I was like, oh, but it's a new version. Maybe this one is better. And no, it was the same. So
It's exactly the same.
didn't care for that.
I
I mean, I that chose Piercing Exhale. I
mhm.
don't, I don't know. I wanted to be spicy here, um, but I felt like nothing really spoke to me, and so I
Mhm.
was like, let's just go with this one because it looks fucking sick.
All right, this could be my downfall. We've been picking a lot of the same cards, and so I'm really happy that I actually did pick something different than you.
Hmm.
I thought, and this is a shot on the format, that we got some stuff going on. We have +1/+1 counters. We got dragons. We some like lots of stuff. I picked Snakeskin Veil.
I knew you
I
would. I
I
knew you
decided
would.
that, hey, this was like one of the best green commons in OTJ. That was 1 year ago. It can come back around again.
Yep.
And it's that common. This is a tried and true card that's very strong. There's some pretty good removal that we've been picking that's pretty good. And the
Protecting
plus one
dragons. Yeah.
protecting dragons and the +1/+1 counter is actually synergistic in this set.
Hmm.
Much, much more so than in previous sets. So I think with all that combined, this card's going to end up being pretty important. Whether it's actually the best one or not, I don't know. I think the one that you picked is feels more safe and obvious,
It's definitely safer.
but I decided to take a shot on green because I love Snakeskin Veil too much. And
Honestly, like part of my decision process, because I was between Exhale and Veil for the same reasons, it
yeah.
was like I think there are more ways the format plays out where Exhale is better than Veil.
Hmm.
There are certainly ways where Veil ends up being better and like could even be a lot better.
Hmm.
But I was also like, Zach's gonna take Snakeskin Veil for sure. Like there was that one time it was the best comment and he never
Yeah.
forgot it.
I will never forget.
And if it's going to be good in the set, it's going to be this one, right? Like, I
It's
think
got to be. If it's a splashy set where you want to play big things, you got cool creatures you want to protect, and
if
there's
the
good
set ends up being
removal,
like faster, like really fast, this
that's
might
gonna be
not
terrible.
be
It's
where you
gonna be
want to be.
awful.
But yeah, I
I
mean, all signs point to like protecting your dragons. +1/+1 counters matter. Like there's a lot of good removal. All
all
the things
right.
you said, I was thinking about that too.
Yeah. I will say one thing. This is insider information, okay? Mark Rosewater put out his podcast. I listened to his podcast. Don't get mad at me.
How dare
He
you?
he it's his Drive to Work podcast. He was talking about
See, the problem is I work from home, so
so you don't listen to podcasts
I don't
anymore.
drive to
Well,
work.
yeah. Well, anyway, his Drive to Work podcast is like 30 minutes long. It's great. If you haven't listened to it, you should check it out. It's the sound quality is not fantastic. I will say that. That's one thing. But he has amazing things to say, so it's worth it.
Just imagining
And
him with like a friggin' studio mic in his
in
car.
his car, no. It gets blown out a lot. Let's just say that. Um, anyway,
Does he ever
he
just like start cursing at people for cutting him off in the middle of
I
chat?
don't think I could ever imagine Mark Rosewater cursing
No,
ever.
but like a Morrow curse, like oh golly gee
Oh
willikers.
gosh darn it.
Yeah,
Oh golly gee. It'll
that
probably
person
be
did not
like
have their signal on.
yeah, like some sort of magic pun, I'm sure. But no, I've heard him kind of slow down while he's like trying to do something, but I haven't really heard him like actually get say something. You know what he does is he records it multiple times. So like if something goes wrong, he'll just do it on the way back from work. He'll
Okay.
because so usually he drives to work and records it and listens to it on the way back home. But sometimes he'll record it again if it's screwed up.
Ah,
If he
so
talks about that in the podcast.
there's
Anyway,
too much cursing, then he. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. because he famously has a mouth of a pirate.
Yeah.
No, so he was talking about Mobilize as a mechanic in Vision Design. And as they were sending Mobilize over to Play Design, I guess that's what happens. The mechanic was almost exactly the same, except for the creature tokens had Menace when they got created. And I think what happened during play design is that they had decided that that was far too strong and they had to pull back on how aggressive the
It's
format was.
it seems too strong. I don't know if I'm biased by the fact that I know that they went with the weaker version, but
Hmm.
it's like, whoa, two menace haste tokens. That seems like a
Yeah,
lot. Or
yeah.
like
So
three or
then
whatever the X is.
I think they cranked down. Obviously, they took off Menace, and then I also feel like maybe they could have cranked down some of the numbers just to be like calm down. And if they're worried about something in play design, they usually nuke it. You know what I mean?
I was going to say, so what's the insider info takeaway here? Is it that the format is fast because those tokens having menace was way too good? Or is it that the format was fast and then they
Hmm.
nuked it and it's not going to be fast now?
That's what I think is that they nuked it. It's not going to be fast anymore. And
I'm
I
banking on that
like
first one, baby.
and the thing is that I want it to be fat. I want Mardu to be great. I want to be able to do the
It
token
sounds
thing.
like you don't, man. It sounds like you're
I
all
just
in on the
don't.
Sultai self mill.
I
Who
did.
draws their whole deck first? Like that's what you want
Okay.
to be good.
All right. All the things I've said are they yes, they do point towards that being a possibility. That you want to draw a bunch of cards and you want to do stuff. Okay, I get it. I get it. And my next card is
I'm just
anyway.
trying to
Sorry, Jeff.
throw off your picks, but
Yeah, I think I'm supposed to pick next for this slot.
okay.
S-
The next is the non-colored.
exactly.
Okay,
So this is a
non-monocolor.
non-monocolored common. So
Yeah,
the picks that you basically have are there's like some tricolored cards. There's a devotee cycle, which is all like its color identity is not monocolored, and basically artifacts and lands. And Jeff, you're gonna hate the card I picked because it's so vanilla and lame, but it
dude,
feels the
that's been
safest.
all of my picks. Have just been boring, safe picks.
I
Did
know,
we
but
pick the same card? We might have picked the same card.
oh, if you pick this one too, this is going to be the worst episode ever of the podcast. I picked
Now
Evolving Wilds. I
I
picked
picked
Evolving
Evolving
Wilds.
Wilds
Oh,
too.
you got to
Yeah,
be kidding me.
it's a
God
three
damn it.
color set.
It's a three. I know it's a three color set. So, okay. So let's talk about our thought process through this whole thing, right? So, as I'm looking at the different cards we can take, all the artifacts are pretty horrendous. Let's just say
They're
that.
bad.
They're all really, really bad. And in general, they try to make the colorless cards in three color sets really bad because that makes it, there's no
Right.
point to play the
So that
colored
you don't
cards.
pop off with your Ugin. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. But yes, it also means that ulting your Ugin means nothing. The tricolored cards in the common slots are really interesting cards. They're all like there's a Abzan one, there's a Mardu one, all the different ones, but they have hybrid mana. So you could also either play like two in a red, or sorry, you could play two generic mana for each of the different mana symbols, basically. So either it's
Yeah.
three mana because you have Mardu, or it's six mana because you don't have Mardu. But because of that, all the cards are really kind of bad. Like they're
They're
not.
super uninspiring. Like when I looked at them, I was like, if I'm paying three mana for this, I'm happy. If I'm paying four mana, I don't know that I am. And
Mhm.
like, how am I
I would
guaranteeing
never.
that this is a three drop? Like it's like
Oh,
a good three drop and like a mediocre four drop, and anything beyond that, it's bad.
mhm.
Is kind of like I think the design space they hit with this. I'm just like, that's not exciting. It's not pushing me to go play a three color deck. I
Yeah,
hate
it
these.
looks. Yeah, I really don't like them.
Yeah.
Like for example, the Teamer one is Teamer. Like they're all only like three mana. It's a 4/3, and then when it enters, you draw a card, then discard a card.
Right.
So
That's
you have
fine for three mana.
fine.
Like I'm
Yeah.
happy to play that for three mana. For
But
four
for four
mana,
mana,
I'm not interested. I'm not that
no.
interested. I'm like begrudgingly play it, maybe. Like,
Yeah, but it's so hard to cast because there's three colors. Why don't I
right.
just play the white one I picked, the Salt Road Pack Beast? It's a
Right.
4/3. You just
Yeah,
draw a
four,
card.
three.
You don't have to
You don't have to
discard.
discard, yeah.
It's like
Same mana cost, same meta
why would
value.
I basically why would I take this? Like it could even be cheaper than this card. You know what I mean? Like this is the kind of stuff where it's just like, oh, these are kind of brutal.
Yeah, I remember being like, I don't know what happened with this cycle.
Mhm.
Maybe I'll be proven wrong. Like maybe the
They'll be
hybrid casting
good enough.
costs
It's cool.
that more valuable. The fact that it can go in like a bunch of different decks, but it just seems like
I don't
you're
want
only
any of these
excited
cards.
if you are really, really like your fixing is on point and you are the three colors. And even then, it's not like win you the game exciting. It's not like this
No.
is super awesome exciting. It's like this is a above rate common. If I jump through all the hoops of
Yeah.
getting three mana on turn three of three different colors, I don't know. These feel like they were pulled back.
Nerfed.
Yeah.
Pulled back way hard. Like these should have been cards that were 4 drops. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
the power of the card should have been a 4 drop, but you
Right.
if you can get it as a 3 drop and then but most of
Then
the
it's
time they
not. Yeah,
expect
it
you to
should be.
play it
If you
as
get it as a
four.
three drop, it should be nuts. Like no
Hmm.
other common will compare to this because you
Hmm.
jumped through all these hoops to get
Yeah.
this common. Instead, it's just like I don't know. There are a couple commons better than it. You know what I mean?
Like
Like
these are leave these cards at the table bad. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
draft
these
chaff,
suck.
like I don't like them.
My
Anyway,
initial
so
interpretation is that these suck. Happy to be proven wrong on them, but I was just like, I felt like I was like, I must be missing something because each one of these
mhm.
seems terrible.
These are terrible. So that's 10 cards that were awful. We didn't like any of those things.
You need me mobilize one on a six drop? Fuck you.
Yeah. Um, the there was another devotee cycle that is also all basically bad. I think the only one that's notable is like the green one is a 2 mana 2/1 with Death Touch. But
So
they
I
all
almost picked the Sultai Devotee
mhm.
because when I first read it, my brain auto-corrected that second ability to tap and not
Oh,
pay one. So
filter.
the
Yeah.
Devotee is like one in a green for a 2/1 Death Touch, and you can pay one mana to add black, green, or blue. But then I saw activate only once each turn. I was like, that makes no sense. If
Hmm.
like because
If you
tapping
tap
already
it,
does
obviously.
that. But I was
Yeah.
about to windmill slam this right into my fucking pile because I was like, holy shit, 2/1 death touch for two that taps for Sultai? That's an insane comment. But no, it filters for Sultai, which means it's a mediocre comment. And it
Yes.
filters only one time. Like just in case it wasn't like mediocre enough. It just like I feel like this could have been activated like twice or something, you know? Like, I don't know, once feels rough. Uh,
Like
so
it,
I didn't want this card anymore.
yeah, I don't like any of the devotees. That's the only one I like because at least like it gets twin bolted down, but at least it like trades with something sometimes. You
So
know.
it sounds like we had the same exact thought process because I went through the
Hmm.
golds and like I'm obviously choosing one of these golds. And I was like, well, those were all terrible. I guess I'll choose I guess I'll choose an artifact. I was like, no, those were like really terrible. Guess I'll
Hmm.
choose one of these devotees. Those were medium at best. Let's go look at the lands and then try to guess which land is going to be like the one I want. And then I saw
Hmm.
Evolving Wilds. So I was like, well, I mean,
Yeah. And
that's the one.
I don't know how great radio this is really making, but ultimately, when you look at these things and you're looking at the 17 lands data, the majority of the time, the thing that actually wins is like one 2 color gold card that ends up being amazing, or it's like the top 2 to 3 tap lands of the colors that are the best in the set, and then
Right.
Evolving Wilds cuts it right in the middle. Not
Yeah.
in the middle, sorry, at the topper tier. So it's
Right.
like if you
It's
pick
better than
Evolving.
the dual lands that are not of the best kind.
Exactly. But it's not as good as the dual lands that are the best colors.
Right.
So it's too hard to try to spike the best color dual land. So taking Evolving Wilds is always smart because even when you're drafting, it's just a good it just fixes your mana. And it's way better to fix your mana with your lands than your devotees. So don't
Yeah, but that's
fall
even
into that
part of it,
trap.
right? Like early in the draft when you don't know which color you're going, but you want to
Hmm.
stay open, Evolving Wilds is a good pick, whereas some of
It's
these
true.
dual lands are a little
Bad
more
picks.
speculative.
Yeah. So that I'm just happy that we went through the entire thought process because it seems like if you're not actually looking at it, it seems like it could be like kind of boring. But it ultimately comes back to Evolving Wilds is a great card and it was designed really well, and it's hard to beat something that's just a good design.
Yeah, especially
You
for
know.
limited. It's great. Um,
Exactly.
I also, this part of my criticism of this, um, like, what do you call it? Selection choice, like part of the game
Yeah.
design that happened with this pack one, pick one game we're
Hmm.
playing. I think the idea of choosing a non-monocolor card is interesting, but like
Hmm.
looking at this specific set, it was not that interesting. It was like a ton of
Yes.
garbage.
Hmm.
And so I don't know if they thought of that before all the
All the
cards were
cards were out.
spoiled
Sure,
and we're
sure,
just
sure,
like,
sure,
oh yeah,
sure.
this is the right way to, like,
Hmm.
throw in a multicolored slash artifact slash land category
Thing.
to account for that. But after looking at the choices, I was like, this was not a fun like category to
Hmm.
choose personally.
Agree. I agree with what you're saying, but I do think it was a nice opportunity to look at a bunch of different cards. So, and I wonder how many people win with Evolving Wilds. Who knows?
Yeah, that's
Um,
fair.
all right, so the next two, we have basically two more. The next is just a miscellaneous comment, another comment that we think is great before we do our gold uncommons and then our tiebreaker rares.
Yeah. So I did because I just like I did these in this order and I was like, do I just try to spike the best land here? But I decided not to do that because I was like, I've been so safe the whole time. Maybe I just spiked the best land. Um, but that's how you lose. It's how you lose.
Hmm.
And so then I was between a couple of cards, both of which we've already talked about. But I think I'm going to put a little money on the table here. I think this format is faster than you think it is, and
Hmm.
so I'm putting a Caustic Exhale here.
Okay. All right. I like that you did that because
Because I
I
think that's
think
a terrible choice, and I shall now be victorious.
no, because I feel bad about my miscellaneous card because I've been lying to you this whole time. I picked Stormsplane Detainment. I picked this as my miscellaneous, and I didn't want to pick it as my white card
I
because I
see.
wanted the Salt Road Pack Beast, and I wanted to take as much I don't
Wow,
know,
so we got off to that
clout.
exciting start of immediately picking different cards,
Yes,
but it was a lie.
it was a
And
lie.
then we chose the same card for so we're
Because
we're off by
I
like
did.
one card here.
I know it's really embarrassing.
Two
Yeah,
cards, I
so
guess.
basically two cards, but it's
I like to exhale more than you do, I guess.
I guess. But so Stormsplane or Stormplane Detainment is just a good card, but I didn't want to pick it first, but I knew I wanted to pick it because I liked the white stuff that was
Yeah.
happening. So, um, but anyway, everything is going to get derailed with this gold signpost. It's got to be. There's no way that we picked the same
I,
card.
okay. Let's see it.
So the card that I picked, I don't think that you picked.
Okay.
That's basically what I'm saying. Is that I think we finally have something different. This is probably the most boring pregame we've ever had because all of our cards are almost exactly the same.
I picked all the exhale cards except when it made no sense to do so.
Except when there was a better white card. The XL cards are really good. I like them a lot. I tried my best not to pick them, though, as you could tell. So I decided for my gold signpost uncommon, we could have picked. There was two of all the different colors, as well as there are some dragon omen dragons you could pick of each color combination that are enemy colors. So there's 15 choices. But I went on a limb, and this is a random limb. This is almost hedging my bets in the sense that like this card is good in a fast format, not in a slow format
Mhm.
ish.
Okay.
So I decided, all right, don't. I picked Marshall of the Lost.
Okay.
Okay, or
I was
fantastic.
worried for a second we picked the same card, but we did not.
Very happy that you didn't pick this one. Um, so it's two white black for a 3/3 creature orc warrior at uncommon. It has death touch. It says whenever you attack with anything, target creature gets +X/+X until end turn, where X is the number of attacking creatures. So yes, it is 4 mana for a 3/3. So that's not the body you'd necessarily love to see on a 4 mana creature, but it does have death touch. And it triggers on any attack, not its
Yeah.
attacks, just any attack.
I like cards that do that.
Yeah, and every single creature that attacks at least gets +1/+1. So if you attack with one creature, it gets +1/+1. So
Right.
if you attack and then mobilize, if you stack the triggers right, you get a lot more,
Right. I was
depending
gonna
on the
about
creature.
to mention mobilize. I'm like, it's interesting that they did this because you got to stack the triggers correctly, or
You do.
you
So
get bugged.
go into your little your settings and make sure you are
Oh
able to
yeah, I
stack the
forget
triggers in
that
the
you
right
have
way.
to make. I forget that you have to choose to be able to stack your own triggers. It's
Yes.
wild.
So don't forget that part. But this could be the top end of like a white black mobilized deck. If
Mhm.
you're trying to if you're trying to be aggressive, cut out red and just play white black and try to mobilize and have this happen. The cool thing is that this doesn't have to attack. I think that's the thing I like about it the most. It
Yeah,
can sit
I'm
back and
gonna do
block
the
it.
classic slap this down post combat and then give
Hmm.
the 30
Oops.
second wait and then the oops. That's gonna
Yeah,
happen to me.
totally. But I think this card is really interesting and cool. But I think there's a lot of awesome choices, and this is just me being like, if Mobilize is great, this will be great. But I don't think I put all my eggs in one basket, and I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing for this game. Like maybe you try to spike it or not. But Jeff, I'm assuming that you're trying to spike this thing.
So that card is very strong. I went down the route of deciding fairly early on that I was going to pick a Storm Brood. So I
Okay.
limited my choices to that because I was like, you know what? I think these cards are awesome because, well, they're all actually just pretty good limited cards, but they are split cards, which I'm
Hmm.
betting on being good and limited. But I love the idea about them being super splashable because you could just play the base
Hmm.
color of honestly either one if you're happy enough with either effect in your deck and just throw out like one or two sources for the other color and sometimes that'll happen and you get to jam the
Do the
other
thing.
color. So
Hmm.
they're like gold cards but they're so splashable. So I feel like that's going to pump up their like they're just very
Win rate.
versatile.
Okay.
Which it could be bad for their win rate because more like people are playing them when they're not at their best. They're
That's
not
what I
actually
thought.
usable.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm gambling on the uh 17
Inverse.
lands players knowing what they're doing.
It's true.
Uh, but okay, so I was like, these are strong limited cards inherently, and I think just strong cards the way they're designed. So it came down to choosing the best one, and I chose Twin Maw Stormbrood.
I was this close to picking that card, Jeff. This close. That was the one I was picking before I decided, you know what, let's pick something else. God.
When you started talking, I was like, we might have picked the same card again. Fuck. Like, we're gonna be like two cards different in this whole thing.
It was
Uh,
like literally right before we started the episode. I was like, you know what, I can't pick this one. I'll pick something else.
yeah. But Twin Moss Stormbrood is 5 and a white for a 5/4 flying. When it enters, you gain 5 life. Nice. And its sorcery side is Charring Bite, 1 and a red, deals 5 damage to target creature without flying. Awesome. Like normally you'd see Charring Bite and you'd be like, in a dragon set, I'm worried that this is not going to kill the things I want. But it's stapled to a dragon itself. So that
Hmm.
downside of like, oh, this doesn't get to kill dragons is mitigated by the fact that it is itself a dragon. And so it's
Hmm.
just an awesome early game card, awesome late game card, and super splashable split card. It will happen that you shuffle it back in and draw it again. In limited, like
Hmm.
it's more likely than in constructed.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just like I think this is
You know
primo
what it
limited design right here.
You know what I like about this one the most? Like looking at these cards, there's two of them that I was interested in, which is
Mhm.
this one and the green black
The,
one.
the the green black one, yeah.
The ones that actually they're actual spell or things you'd cast. If I had
Right.
a card that said sorcery, deal 5 damage to target creature without flying, like I'd probably just play that card, you know? Like close to. You wouldn't be stoked, but like it's still 5 damage.
Yeah.
Like
I think the black white one is okay too, where it's like the +2/+2 lifelink hex. It's like the I forget the spell that it gave indestructible and +2/+2 and lifelink or
take up the
whatever.
shield.
Take up the shield. Oh, but it was
Hmm.
+1/+1. It's
It
kind of
was
like
plus one plus one.
that stapled to a four
Well, it
four
was a plus
flying
one counter, but yeah, yeah, yeah.
stapled to a 4/4 flying ward, pay 2 life. That one's pretty good
Hmm.
too. But I was between the white and the green one.
Yeah, that's actually kind of funny because I didn't actually like the white black one as much as the blue red one. I thought was a little bit more interesting.
It's more
Um,
interesting, but it's not the type of card I like. So it's
sure,
like,
sure, sure,
yeah.
sure. It's just like
I don't like the
there.
creature side. That's the problem.
Yeah, and I like the creature side.
Yeah.
In the sense that like these two cards are really interesting. There's a green black one, a green white, or sorry, green black one, black white one, and a blue green one. All cost 5 mana. However, the blue red one is 4 mana, and the one that you picked, which is the white red one, is 6 mana. Now, I think the one you picked is the best one, and the reason is because the spell costs 2 and the dragon costs 6. And the
Right.
reason, because they're so far apart, you actually don't feel bad about playing the actual spell part of the card.
Yeah.
If it's 3 and 4 or like 3 and 5, it feels awkward. Like, should I play the spell card? I'm about to play the dragon in a couple turns. Like,
Right.
this is so. There's a couple cards like that where it's like, I'm almost to the dragon. Why would I do this? I think the red common card is like 2 mana to discard a card and draw 2 cards, but it's like the dragon only costs like 5. Like, am
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
really doing this on turn 2 to get lands? Like, that's brutal. Like,
I
I
think
don't.
the idea is like the omen is supposed to make you feel less bad about it because it doesn't go in. It's not like it's gone forever, but
It
um,
it feels like it's gone.
it does matter more in like laughing at it a bit in constructed last time. In limited, it does matter more that it goes back into your deck and not into the graveyard.
It's true.
Um, but again, the distance between those casting costs means you have more time to
It's,
draw it back and stuff like
exactly.
that. Yeah.
And you don't have to have the mental capacity to try to figure out, oh, is it better to do this or that? Or like on turn 4, you're like, okay, I drew this on turn 4. I need something to play. Do I play this or do I wait until turn 5 to play the dragon part? Is that better? And you don't
Right.
know if you're going to draw your land or not. Or like that whole thing is gone when you're like,
Right.
oh, kill their thing. It goes back in the deck. We're fine. Like,
Right.
I think that the distance is. I just think that that's going to be really helpful mentally to play with. Whether that actually means it's good or not, I don't know. But like, I think it's. I think it's going to be helpful for the mental
I
game.
think I think
Which,
it matters, like reducing complexity in a very
yeah,
complex game, right? Um, but also like yeah, Twin Ma's just your classic good early, good late, but it's like
hmm,
also good in the mid game. It's just always good.
it's just good, and it stabilizes you by getting 5 life. You know,
Yeah,
white needs
5 is a
more.
lot of life to gain on a
Five,
5/4
five,
flyer. I had to
five
read it a
is
couple of times because I assumed it said like 3, you know?
no. 5 is the most of any of the creatures that you gain life with when
Yeah.
in this set. That's a lot.
I
That's
get
like that's
this
it.
card's all about fives, right? It's white and 5.
Hmm.
It's a 5/4. It gains
Hmm.
5 life. It deals 5 damage. Like
Oh,
there's
totally.
something about
Of course.
fives going on with this card, but it's like makes it
Somebody,
very powerful because five's a huge number in Magic.
yeah, but it only has 2 heads because it's a twin maw.
Yeah,
Like,
and 5 is not even an even number, so I don't really get it. But
yeah, but there's 4 5s, right? So that's 20. Then we have 20 life, something like
okay,
that. I don't know.
sure.
Yeah, but anyway, I'm actually happy that we picked different things, but I was like literally seconds away from picking that card. So, um, This pack pack zero pick one has been less exciting than it usually is.
Yeah.
I think maybe we're being a little bit more competitive now. I I can feel it in my bones. It basically all comes down to like Snakeskin Veil, Caustic Exhale, these Golden Commons,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Salt Road Pack Beast,
If the
basically.
format's a little slower, you'll win, and if it's a little
Hmm.
faster, I'll probably
Yeah. So yeah, so we'll see.
win.
Um, Jeff, what's your tiebreaker rare before we go to
Yeah,
our
that
last
that might
call?
actually matter this time. So,
It might. It might.
in at least in our head to head,
Hmm.
I went with, I didn't look too hard because this thing's never that big a deal.
Yeah.
But I was coming off the high of the dragons with Omen and stuff, so I picked Scavenger Regent, which
Okay.
is three
Okay.
and a black for a 4/4 flying ward, discard a card. But the sorcery part is each non-dragon creature gets -X/-X until end of turn with an X black black. So it's sort of like if they have a big board, you can wipe it, and if they don't, you can just slap down a 4/4 flying ward for four.
Hmm.
Seems like a pretty powerful limited card, and just picked it. So
Nice. I think that's a great one. I'm actually on the exact same page, and I got very scared when you started talking about that
I saw your face. I was
because
like, did we pick the same card? That's
no,
crazy.
because I picked the blue one. I picked Meringue River Regent, which
Okay.
is four blue blue for a 6/7 creature dragon with flying. It says when this creature enters, return up to two other target non-land permanents to their owner's hands.
Yeah, sure.
And then the Omen part is Coil and Catch. It costs three and a blue. You draw three cards, discard a card. I don't like that part nearly as much. Just a 6 mana 6/7 that just bounces two things is
Yeah,
going to
yeah,
be
yeah. You have
that's
like the far more powerful creature, but mine's a little more
mhm,
balanced between
the
yeah,
two sides, and
yeah.
seems like it would actually be helpful in the early game. While this one's like, don't play the Omen part. That's going to be terrible. You
That's like
know?
discarding your bomb.
Yeah. Where so it also in a token set, it could be interesting to just like bounce a couple endure tokens, and that just
It's
seems like
probably
a
not
big
fair.
game.
Coil and Catch is a pretty powerful limited card. Like if you saw three in a blue, draw three, then discard for an instant, that's a good limited card.
That's true,
It's just that you
but
don't really want to cast it because you want the dragon.
exactly
Yeah.
because you want to play something like that that does it. You're looking for your dragon,
Right.
and
Normally
it
that card is to find your bomb creature. Right.
and so now I'm playing it to get rid of my bomb.
Yeah.
I'm using it to get lands to play my bomb. I don't know.
It's true. A bit of a hidden cost there, but
That's why I'm saying like some of these designs with the draw spells are like, what are you doing? Like,
yeah.
or the
I
ramp
think
ones.
that's
It's just
why Omen exists. So it's like to get rid of that feel bad of discarding you because you're not discarding your bomb.
it feels way worse to me. Discarding my bomb and reanimating it is amazing, and there's a crazy reanimation
There,
spell in this
yeah.
set.
You're right. Yeah, it is actually like worse than discarding it. But
Basically
it
worse.
but for new players it doesn't feel as bad, I think,
Great,
is
but it
what I'm
feels
getting
so
at.
much worse for old players. It
Yeah, we're
makes me
like,
feel
no, no,
old.
the whole thing was to discard your big
Yeah,
creature.
I wanted to do that.
Yeah.
No, it just I guess like this one like obviously I picked it for like the best rare, but like that's just because I think the dragon's really strong. But the
Yeah,
actual
it's a
omen
hell of
thing,
a creature.
I have a weird thing with the omens where it's like if the omen is a ability that's good, but it's a late game good thing, like why they should all
Right.
be early effects. Like there's a green one that like costs one to get a land. Like, yeah, that's great. That makes sense because that's what you'd want to do on turn one. But this is turn four. I'm trying to figure out if I'm going to play my dragon or not. Like, I'm going to draw cards. I don't know. I feel like I should just hold on to my dragon instead. Like, it just feels way better. It feels way worse to just like send my dragon away and then be like, shit, I should
Right.
have fucking kept that dragon. You
Well,
know?
that's why I think the black one is interesting because it's like both sides are powerful mid-game cards, but they're super different.
Yes,
And so it's like
exactly.
if the game develops in one way, you really want this, and if the game develops a
Hmm.
different way, you want this other one.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
the black one's also really interesting, the Scavenge Regent, just because it's like this is one of the only ones where it's like 4 mana for the 4/4 is actually probably cheaper than the other costs,
right.
right?
Like sometimes you'll pyroclasm for four kind of thing,
Hmm.
but usually, yeah, the exude toxin probably
Yeah.
is.
like
Six or
five or
seven.
six, yeah. Or just like, oh, there's a bunch of like three toughness things or whatever.
Yeah.
Also, could be the fun kind of situation where like you play this card, it dies, you get it back with if you're playing like Golgari or
Right.
Sultai or
Return
something,
a creature to your hand and you
or
get to pick
permanent,
up a
and
board
then
wipe. Yeah.
you board wipe. That's pretty cool too. So definitely a sweet card. We'll have to just see. It's weird to be in the seats. I'm not used to rooting for the format to be slower and
I
grindy.
know. Who have you become? I'm
I
over
just
here
don't.
like aggro, aggro,
I know.
aggro. And you're like, no, I would really
I
prefer
know.
if this
I'd
would
really, I'd really prefer a more intellectual, longer game
yes, yes.
because
I prefer
I
the
am
value creatures myself.
exactly. Yes, yes,
Yeah.
of course, of course. First strike, no, not interested.
What happened to us, Zach? Completely
I,
swapped spaces.
we really did. We really did. It's just been like years of listening to you talk about how great other cards are.
Yeah.
Changed my mind.
It's just that one time that I played the -4/-0 spell, and that's the
Yeah.
end of it.
Anyway, Jeff, let's go to last call. Let's talk about this beer.
Yes.
And we will have plenty of time to talk about Tarkir Dragonstorm in the future, but today's the only day we get to talk about this Imperial Porter from Clifford. So, as always, we rate our beers on a scale from bronze to mythic, just like the tiers in Arena. However, this has nothing to do with what tier you are in currently, so don't feel bad when we say that bronze beers are trash. They're horrible. We spit them out, we pour them on the ground, and we hate them.
Silver beers are just kind of boring or bad. So macro brews or poorly made micros fall into this category.
Gold beers are fine, but we wouldn't really drink them again.
Platinum, super solid. You would drink it again.
And gold beers or diamond beers haha, are exceptional. You like these a lot. You share them with your friends and you show them off.
Yeah. And mythic beers, these are the best of the best. These are like, the exhale cards of this format of the beer world.
Yes. All right. Imperial Porter from Clifford. Jeff, give it to me.
Okay, so I don't want to
Okay,
influence your
sure.
thoughts too much. I'm curious what you wanted to hear, but I will say I'll start us off. When I have a beer like this, and I've said this before on the podcast, but like we said, we don't drink these beers as often, so it's probably been a while. When I drink a beer like this, I expect to be punched in the mouth.
Hmm.
This one did not punch me in the mouth. I,
It it
I,
punched me in the nose
okay.
with banana a little bit.
Yeah,
I don't
there's
know
some
if
sort of like banana in there.
I don't
Yeah.
know if you got that. I don't know if maybe it's just my nose recently because I also had a wine recently that punched me in the nose with banana. But it was surprising. That was not something I was looking for, but it's not something that took away from it. But I agree that it didn't have the same sharp bite to it, and also that it didn't feel as I don't know robust as ones I've had in the past, and kind of what I'm expecting with like I guess like a Russian Imperial Stout. I kind of put
Yeah.
Russian Imperial Porters in the same kind of category, but it
Yeah,
didn't.
I agree. I think if I like, if you take the how quickly you're getting drunk portion out of it, I
Sure.
would not have guessed that this was an imperial porter,
Mm-mm.
right? If I just drank it blind.
Yes, this feels like college students' first Imperial a little bit.
Yeah, it tasted
Gateway,
it tasted fine,
yeah.
but like I liked the taste. But it's like when I'm deciding to drink a 9% beer, I want it to
It's
be like special. That's
hmm
what I mean about that punch me in the mouth is like the flavors are a little too much for you
hmm
at first, and then your palate opens up and you really
settles
start
in.
to enjoy it.
Yeah. I think I'm looking for a lot more like chocolate and cherry, something big, very viscous,
Yeah,
and
like this was pretty, actually, the body was pretty lean for
yeah,
something
I need like a
something like this.
meal, right?
Yeah.
And not that this was bad or anything, but like, and to be fair, like you don't often get imperial stouts. I get this is a porter, so I keep saying stout, but imperial
Yeah.
porters
So related.
and cans, a lot of times they do offer them in bottles and stuff because they've been aged in the bottle or they're kind of slightly more expensive, and so you have to pay the bottle price or whatever.
Yeah.
But we have had some that are in cans that are delicious. So I don't, or like it kind of exactly what we're talking about. Like Wellington, I think is a good example of like they
Yeah.
tend to have like their imperial porter is
They
like
put some big stuff in cans of it.
it's in a can and it's not, the present. So I don't want to say that because it's not in a bottle, it doesn't taste a certain way. So I don't know. I agree with you that like I'm at the age in my life. I don't know if this is just different than like people that are younger, but like
Right.
if I'm drinking a beer like this, I do want it to be a special thing that I can share with family or people that come over. Or I can show people things off and like, oh, check this out. Or someone doesn't like beer that much, I can be like, oh, taste this. It's like a dessert, but it's like alcohol-y.
Yeah.
And this is not that really.
No. This is I love the appeal to younger people, but it is more like oh, I didn't even notice that was 9%. That's awesome. Whereas I'm kind of
Right.
like, nah, if I'm going to be drinking 9%, I want to know that. Like I
Hmm.
want to be paid for that. I want the
Hmm.
reward for the downside of this beer
For
being
the next day.
9%.
Right. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Because it
Um,
actually pains me a lot more than it used to. Right. So,
yeah. Um, but it's clearly a well-made beer, and like I said, it did taste good. It's
yeah,
just it definitely didn't line up with my expectations.
agreed.
Uh, and it's not what I'm looking for sure. Um,
Hmm.
so it's one of those classic where it's like, obviously it's good, it's well made. It's just not, it's not for me. And like, I
Hmm.
actually think just their regular porter, I would get over this for sure. Because
All
it
right.
tastes very similar, actually has a bit more body to it and is like lower
Yeah, I mean,
percentage.
like,
So,
yeah, and that's also just where we are, and I don't know if
but their
that's
porter is
necessarily,
great. So it's
yeah,
like not being as good as their flagship beer of a very successful brewery is like not,
hmm,
that disparaging. But I don't know. I kind of think again, this kind of falls into that weird region of between gold and platinum, and you can take your pick, but
hmm.
I don't think I would get this again. So I'm just
I
gonna,
think I'm with you. Like, I was opening this expecting it to be like, oh, how mythic is this going to be?
right. I was like, is this gonna be like we have to
Mhm.
invent a whole new tier for this?
Yeah, but no, I think I agree with you. Like, there was some stuff I really liked from Clifford, and maybe I'd pick one more up to just see, hey, maybe I was in the wrong place that day.
Yeah.
But I would like I literally said Wellington. Like I would pick up Wellington to show off to people before this one, right? So
Right.
gold seems kind of where it sits, and damn, we I don't think we've had a gold imperial porter for like
I
ever.
know. Yeah. Does that
I
even
think this
exist?
I feel really good. Good job us. Like
Yeah.
oftentimes when you're rating things just in general, like even with magic cards, you're like, oh, well, I'm rating this card really highly because I like that style of play. Well, when you're
Right.
rating beers, you often rate it on the style of beer. And
Yeah.
so you're like, well, I like porter. So any porter is going to be higher than a lager. And that's just
Lager,
always how it's going to
bronze,
be.
porter, mythic.
Exactly. And that's like, once you start drinking a bunch of them,
Red
you're like,
ale,
wait,
super mythic.
super mythic. Oh,
Yeah.
God. People don't make enough red ales.
I know.
Maybe that's what we should make for our 200th episode.
I'm totally game for that.
Okay, perfect. Let's do that then. But anyway, let's close this one out. This has been a great one, even if we have been like basically on the same page almost the entire
I
time.
know.
No competing things, no competing ideas, but that's fine. I mean, a competing idea, but all the cards fit in all the same things.
Right.
Um,
I
anyway,
just
let's go to
hope we're
closing
both like
time.
totally wrong and like
It's
all
just a
the cards we
mid-range
picked are
battle.
garbage. Worst common in
Humbling,
the set at every point.
humbling elders, the best thing ever.
Yeah.
Um, Anyway, let's go to closing time. As always, you can reach us on Blue Sky and Instagram. Our handle is at Arena Regulars.
You can also find us on Arena itself, probably playing a lot of the cards that we talked about tonight. Our username will be Arena Regulars Podcast.
That's right. Also, you can find, if you want to talk to me personally, you can find me at the regular underscore Zach on TikTok and Instagram, as well as I stream on Twitch. I'm regular underscore Zach. But Jeff, where can they find you?
Best place is the Discord channel. I go by regular Jeff on there. It's an awesome place. You can come and tell us what you think the best commons in the set are and what you would have picked. We would love to see those lists. And we run a pretty awesome Peasant Arena draft. So you should come check that out. It's super cool. I bet it's already been like Tarkir updated. Man, Dylan is on that shit.
Hmm.
So link for that is in the show notes. Come check it out.
That's right. Also, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Spotify. Leave us a review there as well. We just love to hear your feedback. It means a lot to us. So please let us know what you think. This has been the Arena Regulars.
Reminding you that the best card in Tarkir Dragonstorm draft is Evolving Wilds.
Good night.
All right, that's fine.